Auto Racing Network presents Auto Racing 86. We welcome you to Alabama International Motor Speedway, where the fastest field in the history of NASCAR stock car racing has assembled for today's Winston 500. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bob Jenkins. If you were thinking about doing anything else this afternoon, forget it. What you will witness here in the next 3 hours certainly will be a spectacle of speed. Several developments have occurred here this weekend, most of them related to speed. First of all, for more on that story, let's go to one of two pit reporters for today's Winston 500. Here is the editor of Stock Car Racing magazine, Dick Berggren.
Well, Bob, I'm with one of the best of the independents, Jimmy Means, who did a beautiful qualifying run, 202.563 miles an hour. Jimmy, you must have been pleased to go that fast.
Yes, Dick, we're very pleased. This is the first time the entire field of stock cars have run over 200 miles an hour, and I'm just tickled as punch to be here. I'm looking forward to the race.
Well, if he had turned that speed last year, he would have started 8th on the grid. Today, he's in the very last row. Jimmy Means has to pass 39 cars to get up with the leader, Bill Elliott, who's with my colleague, Jack Arute.
And for Bill Elliott, this car, that driver, the steering wheel, they're the hunted. 212 plus miles per hour, a new closed course record for the Coors Melling Ford Thunderbird. Bill, it seems like every time we come to Talladega, you boost the record higher and higher.
Well, it's something we hoped we could do, but still, every time you come out here, you never know what's going to happen. We knew the weather would be a factor, and I felt like the car was pretty good, and the team worked hard, and everything complemented itself.
Now, you're minus one very important member on your team. Your brother Ernie suffered with some problems, and we understand the engine in this car for today isn't really an Ernie Elliott engine. Do you wait to see how this one performs? Are you concerned at all, or did Ernie leave enough instructions so everybody could get the job done?
Well, let's put it this way. I ain't going to worry about it none whatsoever. I feel like everybody's pulled together and they're doing their job, and we're here to race.
Bill, is 212 miles per hour too fast for Talladega?
Well, let's put it this way. When I qualified, when I got under the white flag, that was enough. One lap was enough.
Well, he's got to go 188 laps today for it to be enough. We'll just see if he can do it.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. In the broadcast booth with me today will be Larry Newber. And Larry, there's a lot at stake here, not the least of which, money.
Absolutely, Bob. You know, every race that we cover, be it Indy cars or Winston Cup or IMSA racing, all have their own special appeal, but the money really underscores the significance of toway's race. A $600,000 purse, a $100,000 bonus to Jeff Bodine should he win. If Bill Elliott wins, he starts on a quest toward maybe another $1 million. Plus, we have $10,000 bonuses at lap intervals. There's a lot at stake here today.
Just a few weeks ago, we were on the 5/8 mile oval at North Wilkesboro, and this is a long way from North Wilkes.
It truly is, but to put this into historical perspective, on Thursday, pole day, Tommy Ellis was the first driver out to qualify. He turned in the 7th best time in Winston Cup qualifying history. And you know what? That 7th best time in history, not enough to make the final 20 cut.
That's the story as we cover for you live here on ESPN this afternoon, the Winston 500, which is being brought to you by Levi Garrett Chewing Tobacco. That fresh Levi Garrett flavor's always a winner. By Exxon, quality you can count on. And by Goodyear, you either have Goodyear Eagles or you need them. We'll introduce to you the 42 starters for today's Winston 500 and begin this race when we return. Stay with us.
Here at the end of pit road, waiting for the start of the Winston 500, there's been a new development. During the drivers' meeting, back in the garage area just about an hour ago, NASCAR officials announced that they would incorporate a yellow flag between laps 15 and lap 18. Now, that's to give all the drivers and the crew chiefs an opportunity to take a look at the tires and inspect them and see just how much rubber has been run off of these tires in the middle of that part of the race. Those many laps, you need to run longer than that here at Talladega, but they'll be able to literally take a look at it and then let everybody know. Let's go back to Bob and Larry to call the introduction of the starting field this afternoon.
All right, thank you, Jack. Well, the pace car, we understand, has been stolen. The officials are not driving this thing, and somebody has actually gotten in the pace car and stole it.
There are at least 2 policemen on motorcycles, plus this car, that are pursuing the pace car right now. And up till now, the pace car has not been caught. They've created a roadblock there coming off of turn number 4, head toward the tri-oval, and we think there is some unusual drama occurring here.
Let's see what happens when he gets to the roadblock. Will he try to go through it, or will he stop and be captured? And I guess he's going to stop. Well, this is certainly a...
Well, I've heard the story of that man who makes a living by going around crashing parties, but this is certainly a first.
And you can see the crowd standing and applauding the officials who finally have captured this thief.
It has been a bizarre day. We underwent a period of about 10 minutes where the track was without power. At least many of the significant points, including the press box, our broadcast facilities, as well as the public address, had no power. That was about a half hour ago, and now this occurs. So some strange and bizarre occurrences before the start of the Winston 500.
Well, you can see that they're dealing with this individual rather sternly and trying to get him out of the car so that we can get everybody back in place and begin this Winston 500. But boy, what an unbelievable way to start the events here. And you can see more officials, police officers arriving on the scene.
I will say they worked with extreme swiftness because they created that roadblock momentarily. And they really handled this situation with all due efficiency and haste.
Well, he's being loaded into a police cruiser now and will probably be spending the night in the local lockup. You know, this is a rather wild crowd anyway that gathers here for this race. There are an estimated 125,000 people on hand for today's race, the largest gathering for a sporting event in the history of Alabama.
And it's a crowd that is extremely enthusiastic about automobile racing. It gives you an idea somewhat of the feeling that you get in some of the foreign countries around the world who are so insane over automobile racing. This crowd here at Talladega is just about the same. Last night when we were leaving the racetrack, and for all of our good friends, we did leave the track. We went home and worked and studied last night, had a very calm dinner. It was some of the wildest scenes that I've seen in a long time on the grounds of a racetrack. Everybody was out having a real good time and a lot of fun.
Well, the track officials are now returning to their assigned positions, and we now will begin to go through the procedures that will lead to the start of today's Winston 500. As far as the weather is concerned, it could not be more beautiful. 77 degrees, the humidity 35%. Winds are northerly at 15 miles an hour, and there is no chance of rain. The winds aren't a factor as they were yesterday when we brought you the ARCA race. They were gusting up to 25 yesterday, but only about 15 miles an hour this afternoon. As far as the speedway itself, the turns are banked at 33 degrees. The dogleg here on the front stretch, the so-called tri-oval, is banked at 18 degrees, and the racetrack is 60 feet wide. Now, the seating capacity is 85,000, but there are several more thousand in the infield. And the track itself, of course, was built in 1969. The pole sitter for today's race is Bill Elliott from Dawsonville, Georgia, in the Coors Melling Ford. He qualified at 212.229 outside of row number 1. Bobby Allison in the Miller American Buick, car number 22. In the second row will be Jeff Bodine in the Levi Garrett Chevrolet, car number 5. He qualified at 208.169 outside of row number 2. From Sardis, South Carolina, Cale Yarborough in the number 28 Hardee's Ford. In the third row will be Sterling Marlin driving the Bullseye Barbecue Sauce Chevrolet, car number 1. Outside of the third row, Morgan Shepherd in car 47, the Race Hill Farms Buick. In the fourth row, Buddy Baker in the Crisco Oldsmobile car 88. Outside of the fourth row, Benny Parsons in the Copenhagen Oldsmobile car 55. In the fifth row will be Kyle Petty driving car number 7, the 711 Ford. And outside of row number 5, Bobby Hillen Jr. in the Miller American Buick, car number 8. The rest of the starting lineup, row number 6, Phil Parsons in car 66 and Tim Richmond in 25. The seventh row, Terry Labonte in 44 and Dale Earnhardt in car number 3. The eighth row, Jody Ridley in 75 and Rusty Wallace in 27. The 9th row will consist of Joe Ruttman in car 26 and Richard Petty in 43. The 10th row, Greg Sachs in car number 10 and number 15, Ricky Rudd, the winner of the most recent Winston Cup race. The 11th row, Rick Wilson in car 4 and Harry Gant in 33. In row number 12, Tommy Ellis, car number 18, and Darrell Waltrip in 11. The 13th row consists of 17, Pancho Carter, and 98, Ron Bouchard. The 14th row, Neil Bonnet in car 12 and Phil Barkdahl in 73. The 15th row, Chet Phillip in 81 and Trevor Boys in number 6. Row number 16, Eddie Birschwall in 54 and Dave Marcus in 71. The 17th row, Ken Schrader in 90 and Connie Saylor in 99. The 18th row, Delma Coward in 0 and Jim Sauter in 32. The 19th row, Mike Waltrip in 23 and Doug Heverin in 94. The 20th row consists of Ronnie Thomas in 48 and Jimmy Means in 52. And then the 2 provisional starters, Buddy Arrington in 67 and Tommy Gale in 64. Well, the cars are now beginning to move away from pit road. They'll take a couple of warm-up laps, and then we'll get the green flag to start today's Winston 500. We'll be right back. We are back at Talladega, where the cars are coming through the tri-oval, about to complete the first of 2 warm-up laps. Next time around, we should get the green flag and get this race underway. The question that we have been wondering about all weekend, they qualified around 212 for the pole sitter, and the average speed of the field is 207. What will they be running in the first few laps of the race? And the consensus is it could be as high as 210 miles an hour. We'll have to wait and see.
Bob, the consensus also is it depends on who is setting the pace. If it is Bill Elliott, that 210 seems to be a very popular number. If it is not Bill Elliott, and there is a possibility that he might choose to let somebody else set the pace in the early on just to figure out exactly how strong everybody else is, the pace is likely to be slower.
Running at this speed has to put a tremendous tax on the cars and on the drivers. Yesterday in practice, in the final practice session, a couple of cars lost engines, namely the number 44 of Terry Labonte and Dale Earnhardt's number 3, and there they are starting side by side this afternoon.
Both of these people have already won races on the 1986 Winston Cup Trail, and both came here to Talladega with a reasonable degree of confidence. But that red and white number 9 has put a dent in everybody's confidence. It is a consensus up and down the pits as we look at Labonte, flanked by Earnhardt on the outside, that this is a race against 500 miles, against Talladega, and against number 9.
The cars are now entering turn number 3 in the 33-degree banking of that portion of the racetrack. They'll be in turn number 4 in just a moment, then come on to the 18 degrees of banking here in the tri-oval. The start-finish line is located near turn number 1. On most of the other tri-ovals, it's located in the dog leg, but it's much further down the racetrack here at Talladega than at any other tri-oval track that they run on. Now the pace car leads them off of turn number 4, approaching the tri-oval. We'll watch the pace car and see if it pulls off. Yes, it does. The field comes down, led by the pole sitter Bill Elliott. To his outside is Bobby Allison. In the second row, Jeff Bodine, winner of Daytona, and Cale Yarborough. The field moves through the tri-oval. They begin to pick up the pace just a little bit. Here they come. The green flag is out, and the Winston 500 is on from Talladega, Alabama. They go into turn number 1, and they remain side by side, at least on the front row. Now Bill Elliott edges ahead just a little bit of Bobby Allison as they race through the second corner and onto the flat backstretch that's about 3,000 feet in length. Bill Elliott has the lead. Here they come. That's Jeff Bodine down on the inside of Cale Yarborough. Allison is tucked in right behind Bill Elliott. Third is Cale Yarborough. Running side by side is Morgan Shepherd and Jeff Bodine as they move into turn number 3. We'll be timing the second lap. The first lap, of course, isn't a good representation of speed because they're not up to speed when they cross the line. But we'll try to get an accurate accounting for you of exactly how fast lap number 2 will be turned. Here comes the completion of lap number 1. It's Elliott in the lead with Bobby Allison second and Yarborough third.
If you got up early this morning as you watched the time start to click off and thought, boy, I'm really looking forward to this race, 200 miles an hour, 40 cars at that speed, I don't understand it. It doesn't look like they're going quite that fast. Well, believe me, this is a 2.66 mile course. It is huge. It is dramatically large, and you really lose a lot of the sensation of speed on this big racetrack. It happens so quickly. We saw yesterday in the ARCA race. If you get out of shape, if you get into trouble, there's very little that you can do to correct, and it happens with rapid fire.
Jeff Bodine appears to be backing up somewhat. He's fallen back to 6th position. They come again through the tri-oval. We'll time this lap and translate it immediately into miles an hour and give you an idea of how fast they're traveling. The number 99 car, by the way of Connie Saylor, has pulled into the pits already. It's 46.5 seconds, translating to a speed of 205.9, almost 26 miles an hour for Elliott on lap 2.
The atmospheric conditions seemingly are perfect today. That means to say there is no threat of rain as we watch the leaders freight train down the backswitch. There's a shot from inside of Joe Ruttman's Buick. You can see Joe Ruttman, who came off of turn 2, by the way, on that last lap, 3 abreast, right in the middle of the race course, seemingly nowhere to go high. He moves down a little low as he goes into the 33-degree banking in turns 3. Now turn 4, looking for the front stretch, which really is not a front stretch here at this racetrack.
He's behind Richard Petty, who's running that high line as he likes to do on most racetracks. To his inside is Bobby Hillin Jr. and also Kyle Petty. Now Joe Ruttman setting the car low on the racetrack coming onto the tri-oval, and he's right behind Richard Petty. Lap number 3 is complete. Bill Elliott continues to hold the lead. Bobby Allison runs second, then Cale Yarborough, then Morgan Shepherd running in 4th place.
Ruttman actually picked up a little bit of ground on that last lap while you were riding with him. These are all the people that he passed. Look at the rows of 2, almost like the race still started. There's Greg Sachs in the white number 10 on the inside. Darrell Waltrip, followed by his teammate Neil Bonnet as they go down the backstretch. Phil Parsons is the last one on the tail of that line going into turn number 3.
Here come the leaders off of corner number 4 once again. There are 3, 4, 5, 7 cars in the lead draft as they come down to complete lap number 4.
Joe Ruttman in that Quaker State number 26, the green Buick, is having a pretty good race because Ruttman really didn't expect to run up front. There's that pack of cars that he just got around. You can see right now Waltrip is trying to work to the inside of Bobby Hillin Jr., who's had a good year, and Waltrip and Bonnet come frighteningly close. And then we've got a blown engine, Jody Ridley.
Jody Ridley drops to the apron of the racetrack in turn number 2. And it appears as if an engine has gone on that car. At least some serious mechanical problems have befallen Jody Ridley, and the yellow flag is coming out. So we will have a yellow as they come down to complete lap number 5. They race to the yellow here, and Morgan Shepherd, who's back there right beside Cale Yarborough, would like very much to be in 3rd position when he crosses that line. Let's see how they stack up when they cross it. It's going to be Elliott leading, Bobby Allison in 2nd place, and Cale Yarborough will be in 3rd place, followed by Morgan Shepherd, then Sterling Marlin and Jeff Bodine. We're yellow because of Jody Ridley's mechanical problems after 5 laps of the Winston 500. We'll be back in just a moment. Back at Talladega, where the yellow remains out because of Jody Ridley's problems that he experienced on the racetrack. Apparently some kind of an engine problem because there was a lot of smoke from that car. Peeled down through the tri-oval. We have radios in several cars, one of which is the Bobby Allison machine.
Bobby, this is Larry Newber. What about it? You're lapping at 205 miles an hour there in the early stages of this race. Do you have a shot at number 9?
He's mighty fast. We're going to have to watch him for a while, it looks like.
Bobby, what will your strategy be? Will you try to follow him? Will you let him run away if he turns out to be a rabbit, or what?
Well, what we can do is, the way we're running now, I can't follow him. But we'll just have to see if that changes.
Now, Bobby, what about the pre-race meeting, and we were going to have the yellow flag for tires? Has everybody looked at their tires and say we feel comfortable that yellow flag situation is now off, this having taken care of it?
I don't know what the situation is now. We'll do whatever NASCAR tells us to.
Bobby, you got a nice long ride coming up, so best of luck to you.
Thank you.
All right, that's Bobby Allison. We also have radio contact, hopefully, with Benny Parsons. Benny, this is Bob in the ESPN booth. Can you read us? All right, Benny. Well, we're under yellow here, but you've been able to run about 5 laps under green at what we calculated about 206 miles an hour. How are things working for you?
So far, so good. I just hope they go this well all day.
All right, now, is the pace about what you thought it would be at this stage, or are you perhaps a little slower than you thought Elliott would run in the early stages?
No, I figured 205 to 207 would be about the pace.
All right, Benny, we'll keep an eye on you. Good luck. Benny was the very first driver to crack the 200-mile-an-hour barrier in Winston Cup racing, and now here we have an entire field that qualified not only in excess of 200, but in excess of 202 miles an hour. We're about to go green once again. The pace car pulls into pit road. The procession, being led by Bill Elliott, again comes down through the tri-oval, and Harold Kinder, the official NASCAR starter, has the green flag. He waves it, and here we go once again on lap number 8. 8 laps completed out of 188 that will make up this 500-mile race here at Talladega.
The biggest move among the front runners was Dale Earnhardt. As we zoom in and look at Tommy Ellis, who turned in that very quick qualifying time on Thursday. We've got a spin and 2 cars coming together. It's Chet Phillips. It looks like he straightened it up. No, he's going to lose it after all. The Texan spins out, coming out of turn number 2, almost getting straight. He was spinning right in front of Eddie Burchwall and almost saved it.
He really did. I thought he had it gathered in, but then just barely lost control and spins to the inside of the racetrack. So we again have a yellow flag situation here at Talladega after only a half a lap of green. Field comes down through turn number 4 once again.
Heavy traffic coming through turn number 4. They're the leader single file, but look at him back to the middle of the pack. Maybe even more abreast. Ooh.
Bill Elliott, Bobby Allison, Cale Yarborough, Morgan Shepherd, then Sterling Marlin, Dale Earnhardt, and Jeff Bodine. We'll replay what happened up in turn number 1 as Chet Phillips made contact with another car, almost saved it, but then lost it at the last moment.
Chet was way down there in the bottom of the racetrack. You can see that he was hooked up with Eddie all along, and Eddie straightened him out, actually. Burchwall is almost the guy who saved this incident for Chet. And he's cranking on that wheel, saw him back and forth, but at 175, 180 miles an hour, which probably is what they were turning right there, it's real difficult to save. He does a good job, Bob, of keeping that car from going back up into traffic, because the cars have a tendency, once they turn around 180 degrees, to back right up into the flow of traffic, and young Chet did a good job.
So Chet Phillips' machine is at the bottom of the racetrack. The tow truck is behind it. The pace car is coming out onto the racetrack as the field comes through the tri-oval. Some Winston 500 trivia. 2 drivers have won the Winston 500 3 times. Who are they? We'll have the answer for you when we return from this commercial as we present live on ESPN the Winston 500. The answer to our Winston 500 trivia question: 2 drivers who have won the Winston 500 3 times. Who are they? Well, the answer: David Pearson in 1972, 73, and 74, and Buddy Baker in 75, 76, and 80.
And there are a couple of people who have won it 4 times. We'll just stew on that one just a bit, you know.
Ronnie Thomas has stalled at the end of pit road. His crew pushes him away there. He finally fires and gets going. Buddy Baker is in car number 88 this afternoon as we see the update on the NBA scores. Boston leading at the moment, and the American League Baseball scores.
You know, Buddy Baker has had a history of doing well at this racetrack here at Talladega. He's had a year that's been a kind of a curious year. A lot of people have been looking at Buddy. They thought perhaps he would do better now that he was with his own team. It's a big responsibility. I would imagine Buddy feels as though he's got something at stake here today. He wants to do well. Wind chills are a major factor here at this racetrack at these speeds, and yesterday Dick Berggren had an opportunity to look at that situation.
We're going to look at it today too, Larry, for sure. Almost every team has at least one windshield hung up behind their pit here on pit road. The reason? Windshields break at Talladega. Why? Incredible pressure on the car itself. Now, these cars are going into the corner with so much pressure on the front end, the mechanics calculate 4,000 pounds is going down. That actually twists the body, causes it to flex, and that is what breaks the windshields here at Talladega. We got one broken already. Mike Waltrip, he's got silver tape all over the side of his. Jack Arute down pit road has another story. Jack?
And the story is a new crew chief, so to speak. His last name is Elliott, but it says Dan instead of Ernie. Ernie, as you know, is suffering with a problem, staying away from the racetracks, and I understand now, Dan, a lot of the responsibilities have fallen on your shoulders.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that myself, but we've tried to do the best we could out here this week, and I thank God everything's gone as it has, and hopefully we can get through today, and maybe Ernie will be back to work soon. Sure do miss him a lot.
Normally when we look at this team, it's Bill that seems a little wound up. All week it looked as if he was laid back, things were going well, but it was like almost you were afraid to even come up and clap your hands behind you because you were just tighter than a drum and you jump a lot.
No, I've been pretty easy this week, and things have gone so far pretty well. So we're happy. The car, we want to run up front as best we can and be there at the end. That's the main thing I'm concentrating on now.
Now, how have you set the car up? To run 212 all day, or are you going to back out? Did you make a gear change?
No, there's no way we could run 212 all day. Qualifying would be it. But the car's set up to run as fast as we think we can run.
And how fast is that?
I don't know. We'll leave that up to the driver.
Well, it's up to Bill. His brother Dan and his brother Ernie are all watching or waiting.
We're still under yellow, and we will be for at least one more lap. 12 laps have been completed. We're yellow because of an incident involving Chet Phillip down in turn number 1. We'll be back in just a moment. The Winston 500 from Talladega, Alabama, underway with 13 laps completed. Our second caution period of the afternoon out because of a spin in turn number 2 by Chet Phillip. Well, as we told you, the speeds here this weekend have been tremendous, and Dick Berggren had an opportunity to talk with Morgan Shepherd about the pace during the race.
You run this place wide open all the way around without lifting at any point?
You don't have to lift anywhere. Just, Bill Elliott will be going so fast, we'll just about have to be running flat out. But, yeah, these cars handle so good. The aerodynamics on the cars are so much improved over last year. And flat out's nothing here.
Morgan Shepherd driving the Race Hill Farms Buick car number 47, the winner at Atlanta earlier this year. Let's go down to Dick Berggren for a quick report. Or Jack Arute, I'm sorry, Jack.
But very quickly, what we've discovered is maybe an impending problem that'll fall more people. Connie Saylor's been in and out of the pits 3 times, taking wheels off and tires, saying he's got a vibration. When they expect him, no problems with the tires, but these little wheel weights that you and I would have in our cars, they keep vibrating off the tires at over 200 miles an hour and putting them bouncing back and forth. Green flag's out, gentlemen. Let's see if we have any more vibrations in the runners that are still out there.
All right, let's see that indeed. The pace car pulling off, and Bill Elliott leading him down. Now, we did not explain exactly why Ernie Elliott is not here this weekend. He's suffering what is reported to be mononucleosis back in Georgia, and having suffered from that malady once, I sympathize with him. We hope very much that you're back with us very soon, Ernie, and continue best of luck. Your brother Bill is leading the Winston 500 at this point as we go back to green. Bobby Allison still tucked into second position, and Cale Yarborough third. They've been running that way since the drop of the green flag.
You can see the competition midway through the pack. They're 3 abreast off of the banking, down the backstretch, now 4 abreast. There's Neil Bonnet way down low. He's being followed by Buddy Baker. There's Kyle Petty in the number 7 car. Bonnie is right in there. Joe Ruttman is right between them. Benny Parsons on the inside. They are running close and fast.
We got about 10 cars running nose to tail out there, and then we get back to this pack of cars. Neil Bonnet and Kyle Petty running side by side out there on the racetrack, each trying to pick up a position. They're 3 wide coming through the tri-oval now. Neil Bonnet to the very inside of the racetrack, but he's slowing down, it appears, as several cars go around him. His teammate Wayne Wild, Darrell Waltrip, is still on the bunny. Those 2 drivers have moved up significantly here in the first 15 laps. Darrell Waltrip started 24th and Neil Bonnet 27th, and now they're running up around 14th and 15th.
Jeff Bodine way down low, a lane that we saw Grant Adcock using yesterday, and look at the move that Earnhardt makes in the middle of the pack. Where was he getting the draft for that move? Earnhardt moves underneath Sterling Marlin. Here comes Richard Petty on the high side. The competition is as keen as ever here at Talladega, with the exception of up front.
5th through 9th is what they're doing. There is Neil Bonnet. We mentioned that he was slowing down here in front of us in the tri-oval, and indeed he is. He's coming into his pit area. The problems that have befallen Neil Bonnet throughout this season are continuing this afternoon here at Talladega. Let's go to Dick Berggren.
Well, Bob, so far it appears to be simply a routine pit stop. They're talking to him, trying to diagnose what the problem is, but they're not doing anything on the car yet. And indeed, they did not do anything on the car. We'll talk to the crew and see if we can find out exactly why that pit stop was made.
Now, it seems a little inconsistent since we have seen 2 yellows here that he did not make a pit stop under, and then run 2 laps of green, and then him come in for what appears to be a routine pit stop, but I somehow just can't believe that. We'll get the word from Dick, though, in a moment. Neil Bonnet moving back onto the racetrack in the 33 degrees of banking in turn number 2, catching up with the rest of the field as the leaders come down into turn number 1 once again.
All things being normal, These people will go 35 to 38 laps before their first stop for fuel, so that gives you an indication as to how early Neil came in.
Well, the problem with Neil Bonnet is a loss of fuel pressure. They do have a gauge on the dashboard that tells them what the fuel pressure is. When it drops, it could be all sorts of different things. It could be a clogged fuel line, a bad pickup, a problem with the fuel pump, a problem with the carburetor. At any rate, with low fuel pressure, you simply cannot run fast.
Cale Yarborough way high on the racetrack, lost 2 or 3 positions. He was running third, but now is back in a 6th position as Sterling Marlin runs to the inside of the racetrack right beneath Cale Yarborough. Now Yarborough moving around him and going into 5th once again, but Cale was very high in turn number 3 and 4 and lost a couple of positions. Now look at Dale Earnhardt making a move on Bobby Allison, and Earnhardt puts himself in 2nd position as they come onto the backstretch. Now he begins to catch up with Bill Elliott.
There's no question that on balance, race in, race out, week in, week out, that number 3 car, the blue and yellow number 3 Wrangler machine, has been the most consistent front runner all year long on short tracks, on flat tracks, high banks, and on super speedways. He didn't really make a lot of noise this week during practice and qualifying, and here we are just 18 laps into this race. Dale Earnhardt is up front already.
Earnhardt in 2nd, Bobby Allison back in 3rd, then Morgan Shepherd, Sterling Marlin, Cale Yarborough, Richard Petty, Jeff Bodine. They're running in that order, and the speed was 205.7 last time around. Elliott now with, you can see, about a 15 or 20 car length advantage on Dale Earnhardt, who has come on from his 14th starting position to 2nd. Now Cale Yarborough is involved in a battle with Morgan Shepherd and also Richard Petty for position. And in there also Jeff Bodine.
This is the kind of trading action that we have become accustomed to seeing here at Talladega in years past. Usually this kind of action is up front. Some of the race records they have set here for competition is that the lead changes hands every 3 or 4 green flag laps. Not the case today. Putting it into historical perspective, Elliott looks mighty strong.
Petty and Jeff Bodine running side by side out there. And Morgan Shepherd and Kyle Petty running side by side. Now Petty making a move to the inside of Jeff Bodine, making it a 3-wide race, coming off of the 2nd turn and down the backstretch. Kyle Petty now moves alongside his father in the backstretch. 3 abreast racing at over 205 miles an hour.
There were a lot of questions about how would the draft affect the cars at these 205 mile an hour plus speeds. In practice, it seemed like everybody needed more room, but here in the race, everything looks just as competitive as ever, except it's about 10 or 15 miles an hour faster than in years past.
You got to be impressed with Richard Petty's performance here early. He's in 7th spot and started 18th. He has moved up very nicely in the opening laps.
These cars are running 5th through 15th. No, they're the leaders. Now here comes Dale Earnhardt as they're beginning to put a lap on Neil Bonnet. They're going to the high side. That's Earnhardt in the middle on the inside of Elliott. Elliott is not going to give up. Will he hold on? Going into turn number 3.
Elliott to the high side, Earnhardt to the low side. They're side by side through the turn now. Dale Earnhardt grabs the lead from Bill Elliott in the middle of turn number 3. So we have answered the question, is Bill Elliott's machine the very strongest out here? Well, from all indications, he's not pushing it all that far. As a matter of fact, Earnhardt now in the lead, and Bobby Allison is right there also in the tussle for 1st place.
The 3 of them have a comfortable lead over everybody else, and surprising, Sterling Marlin is only about 50 yards behind, and he has about 200 yards between himself and 5th place. Sterling Marlin turning in a great performance. You see him creeping in there on the right-hand side of your screen. There are the first 4 cars. You can see the rest of the pack is not even in the picture.
Yeah, the first 4 cars have separated themselves well from number 5 running car. Now Elliott will have nothing of Dale Earnhardt leading this race. He goes to the inside, pulls the slingshot, and goes into the lead once again. So Elliott back in front, then Earnhardt, then Bobby Allison, and Sterling Marlin running 4th.
There is Sterling. All this trading going on up front has given him somewhat of an advantage. You can see he has moved in just a little bit more, as has Bobby Allison. If there is a surprise of the 1986 season, it is that Haas-Ellington team. The number 1 car, Sterling Marlin, the Bullseye barbecue sauce Durango boot machine. He has qualified and raced well at every event that he's been at so far this season.
He has only been in 3 races so far this year. This is his 4th. The Daytona 500 was his best finish. He finished in 9th position in the Daytona 500, running strong all day, and he is certainly running strong here on the high banks of Talladega this afternoon, right now in 4th position.
As a matter of fact, Bob, they had a shot at a top 4, top 5 position, so they ran out of fuel late in the race.
24 laps completed in the Winston 500. The top 4 are running right together on the racetrack. They're Bill Elliott, Dale Earnhardt, Bobby Allison, and Sterling Marlin. We'll be right back with more of our live coverage from Talladega, Alabama. The yellow flag has been displayed once again because of debris on the backstretch. And that debris is a disintegrated tire on the car of Sterling Marlin, the number 1 machine. And we talked about him just before we went to break. The tire exploded on him down the backstretch. He has come in for a stop and is going back out. Let's go to Dick Berggren.
Boy, that tire really did come apart too, Bob. The tire and the inner liner were both gone. Sterling Marlin also stalled the car here. The crew had to push it down pit road to get it going again. They really think they can run well here, and this is a tough break for them this early in the event.
Well, they were running well. They were running in the top 4 when things went sour for them, and now Marlin, a lap down, has a lot of work ahead of him.
He did lose a lap. That's absolutely correct during that last stop there. The yellow flag came out, but not quite early enough. Now, we've had 27 laps completed. Probably everyone will come in. It's a little earlier than normal, but when you've gone this far into the race, you've got to take the chance. You figure all the leaders will come in, so you'll follow them in.
Dale Earnhardt and Bill Elliott come in for a stop. So does Bobby Allison and most of the other top runners, including Cale Yarborough, Joe Ruttman, Jeff Bodine. And here is the split screen with Dale Earnhardt on the top and Bill Elliott on the bottom. We'll see whose crew completes the work first and who can get his driver back out on the racetrack fastest. Dale Earnhardt's crew has already changed the tires on the right side of the car. They're moving to the left side and now making the switch. The fuel is being put in the number 3 Wrangler Chevy. Meanwhile, Bill Elliott's crew is working on the left side of the car now, and Elliott's crew has the work done. Rather, Earnhardt's crew has the work done. He goes back out onto the racetrack, and now here comes Bill Elliott. So a little bit faster stop for Dale Earnhardt, but it really doesn't make any difference because we are under yellow.
Very consistent, Bob, with the last automobile race that we televised, the Winston Cup cars here on ESPN, when Kirk Shelmerdine and crew got Dale in and out quicker all day long.
Closer look at what you might call a disintegrated tire, right, Dick?
Boy, it sure is, Bob. The tire's gone, the inner liner is gone. They really weren't expecting tire problems of this magnitude. They were having little tiny problems with little tiny chunks coming out, but they didn't expect to see them explode like this. Hopefully this is a one of a kind and we won't see any more of these during the day. This has got to be a thrill at 200 miles an hour when they let go like that.
Boy, I would think you would have your hands full when something like that happens. Here is a replay of the tire going on Sterling Marlin.
Yeah, he felt it going first. Obviously, it had already gone flat. That was probably the inner liner that let go right there. The outer tire already has gone, but that inner liner might have saved Sterling.
A lot more pit activity is going on, but the leaders are on the track, having already pitted. Dale Earnhardt will be the leader. I believe that Bobby Allison is going to fall into 2nd position. His crew did a nice job getting him out quickly. 3rd is going to be Cale Yarborough. 4th, Bill Elliott. 5th, Jeff Bodine. Then 6th, Richard Petty. 7th, Rusty Wallace. 8th, Darrell Waltrip. And 9th would be Kyle Petty, who has done very well here in this race so far.
He has looked strong.
Well, a week from today, we'll be at Atlanta International Raceway for the Winston. It'll be on live next Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. That, of course, the race for the 9 winners of Winston Cup competition last year, plus another starter. And then right after the Winston, we'll have the Invitational. And that's, of course, the race whose field was determined by voting from the race fans. Join us next Sunday live at 3 o'clock Eastern Time for the Winston and the Atlanta Invitational. 29 laps have been completed. We are under a yellow flag situation at Talladega, and we'll be back right after these messages. Bill Elliott and the others are back out on the racetrack after having made pit stops, but we are still under caution. Now, Bill Elliott has not won a race so far in 1986. At North Wilkesboro a few weeks ago, Larry had a chance to talk with him.
Let me take a chance and maybe make a mistake getting inside your head. But what I want to say is that I've heard the word frustration. I don't believe that. I don't think your team is frustrated. How can you be after last year?
Not really. You know, I think we're just a little bit tired because of what was put on us last year, going through everything we went through last year, as hard as we worked last year. I think we're just a little bit what you'd call burnt out.
Well, I think there was a feeling that the team has kind of resurrected itself for this weekend. They worked very hard to win the pole position for this race. They have done it, and now they're running very well in the race, although Bill, at the moment, make that 4th position. Dale Earnhardt passes Phil Barkdahl, who did lead under yellow because he didn't pit, but now Earnhardt and Bobby Allison go at it nose to tail on the backstretch. Tommy Ellis running there in 3rd place.
Tommy is 1 lap down, 2 leaders up front. And one other comment about that Elliott situation. This is a very important day for them. One race never makes a season, unless you win $1 million that day. One race doesn't make a season, but this is a critical one for Bill. It's been a tough season. He needs to do well here today.
Cale Yarborough is in 3rd place, although he is 4th in line there, and Bill Elliott is in 4th place. Now Bobby Allison moving to the inside of Dale Earnhardt in the tri-oval, and Bobby Allison wants the lead, and he gets it. He crosses the stripe just about a half a car length ahead of Dale Earnhardt, but now he moves solidly in that position as the cars head for turn 2.
I don't think there's any question that 1986 is the resurrection of Bobby Allison. He's done this at least 2 other times in his career. It seems like, well, maybe Allison finally got burnt out, but he never does. He remains one of the most active race drivers in all of America, and he's showing everybody in 1986 that no matter what the circumstances are, he still has the ability to run up front.
Well, if our records are correct, that is the 7th lead change among 5 drivers so far, just in the 32 laps that we've completed so far. Continuing the tradition here at Talladega of competition. The record for lead changes, 75 lead changes in 188 laps. That was set right here at this racetrack in 1984. And Dale Earnhardt looks like he would like to move into the lead once again, but for the moment stays about 1 car length behind the leader, Bobby Allison.
As we watch Allison and Earnhardt, let's put this a little bit into the thought processes and try to figure out exactly what's going on in everybody's head. There are a lot of unknowns this year because of the increased speeds here. There's Elliott going to the inside of Yarborough, looking towards the lead again. We've seen the tire situation crop up. Nobody knows exactly what the fuel consumption rate is going to be. Nobody knows for certain what the feeling is going to be draft-wise. How will that affect the setup of the car? How will that affect the fuel consumption? A lot of unknowns, and some of them are trying to get them answered right now.
Neil Bonnet has been in and out of the pits all race. Let's go to Jack Arute for an update on the situation involving Neil Bonnet.
And Neil just refired the Budweiser number 12. Now, here's what the problem was. They call it a fuel pump. It's necessary to bring the fuel from the tank through the motor, through the carburetor, to build the spark to move the wheels. They had to put on a new one so he could go back out on the racetrack.
All right, so Neil Bonnet goes back out on the racetrack in competition, but is many laps down. Here are the first 6 cars for you. Now we focus in on the first 4. That's Allison, Earnhardt, Bill Elliott, and Cale Yarborough. Then comes Jeff Bodine. Behind
Looks
Jeff
like
Bodine
Sterling is right there, but
Sterling
he's a lap
Marlin.
down.
That's correct.
And Richard.
The tire, and then Richard Petty.
Those are the first 2, 4, 6 cars. Then you've got Waltrip, Kyle Petty, Rusty Wallace, Joe Ruttman, Buddy Baker, and Morgan Shepherd. They comprise the first 12 cars in the race so far to this point.
Look at Richard Petty again working to the high side of the racetrack, looking to pass Sterling Marlin. Richard, a nice job so far. Now he moves to the inside of Marlin as they go down the backstretch, but at this moment does not choose to pass Sterling. Richard Petty, car number 43, the STP Pontiac.
As is traditional in racing, more speeds often mean less passing because it takes more energy and more effort to go around the guy in front of you. See Petty, he's trying to get around Sterling. Remember, Sterling lost the lap, but easily he has been running with the leaders all day long. But a lot of the drivers told us that they thought that this would be much more of a single file procession than ever before here at Talladega. The banks at Talladega, the conditions are still providing for a lot of passing and a lot of good lapping, but passing is not quite as prominent as it has been in years past.
There's the average speed after 30 laps, 142.5 seconds, 7. The race record, 186.288. We have had already 3 caution periods, reducing the average speed of the race to this point, although they are traveling at 205 miles an hour. And look at Bill Elliott drop to the inside in turn number number 3. He challenges Bobby Allison for the lead. He's already passed Dale Earnhardt for second place. Here they come off the 4th turn onto the tri-oval once again. Bill Elliott showing some muscle down to the inside of the racetrack, but unable to go into second. He drops back to 3rd.
An interesting moment, I'll tell you why. That move came close to what historically we have seen on super speedways. When you get out of the draft, get down there all by yourself, moving to the inside as Bodine trying to get around Yarborough. When you get out of the draft, you get down in your own lane. Normally you get drop kicked, as they used to say in this type of racing, to the end of the line. Last year, when Elliott would get down there, he would simply move out and move on. He would pass everybody in the line down at the bottom of the racetrack. Nobody else can run down there without getting drop kicked to the back of the field, except Elliott. This year, just not really the opposite, but sort of the compromise of the history and the compromise of last year. He didn't get kicked all the way to the end of the line, but he had to fall in. He couldn't pass the leader.
7 cars here running in the lead draft. One of them is a lap down. That's Sterling Marlin, the next to the last car in the line. And Richard Petty bringing up the tail of this 7-car procession. Here comes Rusty Wallace into the pit area. Rusty was running in 9th place, but has had to pit his Allugard Pontiac. Rusty, of course, the winner of the race we televised for you in Bristol earlier this year.
Just 38 laps without question. An on-schedule stop. It looks like it might have been for a tire. You see how the front of the car looks gray? That's just the pitting. He did so much practice this week. The metallic blue paint was completely washed off the front of that car. He came into this race with a lot of confidence, and he really thought he might have been one of the contenders for the win. And Bob, we hear that it was an equalized tire for Rusty.
So tire problems continue to plague some of the drivers. That was the situation regarding Sterling Marlin, and now Rusty Wallace is about to go a lap down because of this equalized tire. He does go a lap down as the leaders pass him at full speed going into turn number 1. Bobby Allison still has the lead, and Bobby has now about a 3-car length advantage on Dale Earnhardt. They race down the backstretch, and Kyle Petty has come out of nowhere. Kyle is that car to the inside of the racetrack, has caught his father, and now runs side by side with him down the backstretch. Kyle doing a great job as he had a not so great starting position, but certainly has come on strong.
Kyle Petty, who finished second in the 1985 Winston 500, this race a year ago, is showing everybody that last year was no fluke. Remember, the very first professional automobile race he ever raced in was at the Daytona International Speedway. It was an ARCA race in which he won. Kyle likes the big tracks. He has from the very beginning, and he's showing it once again today.
Started 9th, has moved to 6th position. Now moves to the inside of Sterling Marlin, but remember, Sterling is a lap down, so he is not picking up a position there. He remains in that spot. Jeff Bodine will be the next car that he tries to pass and pick up a spot on.
40 laps are complete, 41 this time around. That means in 9 more laps, the leader of the race will pick up an additional $10,000. We talked about some of the additional monies at stake in this race, and that first moment is coming up in just 9 laps.
Should be a real battle to the finish line, as there is a lot of money at stake on lap number 50. We're glad you could join us today from Talladega, Alabama. We'll be right back. Bob Jenkins, Larry Newber, Jack Arute, and Dick Bergman back at Talladega, Alabama for the Winston 500. You're looking at the battle for the lead. Bobby Allison has it right now. Dale Earnhardt is right on his back bumper, though, and Bill Elliott is in 3rd. Then comes Cale Yarborough, and really the surprise of the early portion of the race, Kyle Petty has moved into 5th spot and challenges Cale Yarborough for 4th.
Well, Bobby's a surprise. When you look back at the record books, you think, well, yeah, he does well here. He did qualify 9th fastest this week, but it was a quiet night. Nobody was talking about the Wood brothers and Kyle Petty. Nobody was saying, wow, did you see him practicing? It was just a rock-solid 9th position. He's been a little more than rock solid in this race, as Bob has indicated. He looks like he may well be one of the 2 or 3 fastest cars so far in the Winston 500.
Now, the pace that Bobby Allison is setting right now is a 202-mile-an-hour pace. Earlier in the event, when Bill Elliott was leading, they were going 205. Look at Kyle Petty move to the inside and pick up that spot. Pancho Carter, meanwhile, is doing a fine job.
Without question, this is Pancho Carter's finest performance in a Winston Cup race. There he is, the red and white number 17, the Roger Hamby car. He is right now in 12th position, and he is running in the 2nd draft. That's Benny Parsons right behind him. Phil Parsons is leading that group. Rusty Wallace is also in it, but Rusty is a lap down. But for Pancho Carter, this is his most sterling effort so far ever in a Winston Cup car.
Pancho, of course, the pole sitter at the Indianapolis 500 last year. The Speedway is open in Indianapolis for practice, but Pancho elected instead to come here to Talladega and run the Winston Cup car.
He only qualified 25th on the grid at 204.2 miles per hour. So Pancho was running about as fast as he qualified and faster than at least the first 10 or 12 cars that were directly in front of him when the race started.
We go back up front and check the progress of our leader, who right now continues to be Bobby Allison. Earnhardt second. Then it is Bill Elliott running in third position. Holding on to fourth at this moment is Cale Yarborough, but Kyle Petty once again moves to the inside and challenges him for that spot down the backstretch. Petty and Yarborough are side by side, even as they go down the 3,000-foot backstretch, trying to contest fourth position here. Now on the inside line, Kyle Petty has the advantage and moves into fourth.
You have to say the new cars are really equal. That was the intent of the rules, and this far into the season, the first weekend in May, it certainly looks like the intent has been achieved. Bill Elliott is not dominating this race. And by the way, the pace really has slowed down with Elliott not on the point, so it seems like Elliott may still be the fastest car in that group, but he is not as superior, he's not as overwhelming as he was a year ago. Here comes Kyle again, going to the inside of Bill.
Bill getting a little wide in corner number one, and Kyle Petty taking advantage of it. Kyle Petty moves to third position. He's a man on the move.
Boy, he really is. Now, he was the biggest vote getter from the fans for that invitational race for the 9 winners of last year for next week at Atlanta. And right now, a lot of his fans who are standing up and cheering. Does Kyle Petty have a fandom? Oh, yes, he certainly does.
Now he looks inside of Dale Earnhardt coming off of corner number 4, looking for second spot, but for the moment follows Dale through the tri-oval. The crowd is standing and cheering as Kyle goes by. It's very obviously a Kyle Petty crowd here this afternoon, at least several thousand of them. They were on their feet and cheering as he flashed by the grandstand here in front of us.
There's a look at Kyle Petty, the young performer, not only on the racetrack but on the stage. Kyle has recently signed a record contract and has been busy in the studio as well as on the racetrack. 47 laps have been completed, just 3 to go, actually 2 and about half. Remember, at lap 50, there's an additional $10,000 bonus. Who is lying in the bushes trying to make that patented last tri-oval pass here at Talladega, mousetrap as they call it sometimes, to pick up that additional $10,000? Right now, Kyle looks like he may be in the driver's seat, Bob.
He appears to be the strongest car out there right now. There he moves to the inside of Dale Earnhardt. There are less than 2 laps to go before we reach lap number 50. Earnhardt is being challenged by Kyle Petty. And they're side by side once again down the backstretch. Let's see if Kyle can move into second position as they come off of the backstretch and head for turn number 3. They're side by side. Petty to the inside, Earnhardt to the outside. Nobody with the clear advantage. Now Earnhardt just slightly ahead.
Boy, Earnhardt is tenacious. He is a tough, tough cookie. Remember the start-finish line. It is not here where it traditionally is. They go through the apex of the tri-oval. They start to come down another short straightaway, and now the start-finish line is coming up right there. That'll be where the $10,000 is won in just 1 lap.
That was lap 9. When they come by again, it will be lap number 50 and $10,000 up for grabs. Benny Parsons has pitted in car number 55, and he has lost a lap. So Benny goes a lap down, and Sterling Marlin in car number 1. We see some smoke coming from that car, very evident here on the main straightaway. He is now in the backstretch, but I believe the afternoon is going to be over for Sterling Marlin. Now here comes lap number 50. The leader of this lap will take home a bonus of $10,000 from Kodak. It's going to be Bobby Allison or Dale Earnhardt, it appears. Here they come through the tri-oval. Earnhardt working to the outside, but it is going to be Bobby Allison who wins $10,000.
Just a subtle little tricky move. Allison was watching the mirrors. He had a very good handle as to where Dale Earnhardt might be. Earnhardt had turned back Kyle Petty. Kyle did not become a factor in that, and Bobby, just because of his years of experience, picks up that $10,000 from Kodak. A really nice, simple, subtle move from Allison. Earnhardt says, well, you may have won that lap. I'm going to win this one.
Well, it looks like that Dale maybe miscalculated here. and he thinks this is lap number 50, but it is not. This is lap 51. Earnhardt, however, has moved into the lead, or perhaps Bobby Allison, after winning that $10,000, said, somebody else can lead, and I'll do the chaser for a while.
Yeah, I think so, Bob. I got a feeling that they knew exactly where they were. Earnhardt took his shot. He went to the high side. He knew that Bobby was not going to give him enough room on the low side on that last lap. His best shot was going to the high side, and you know, there's a lot of money at stake for this race. Yeah, it's nice to pick up that extra $10,000, but to be in first place at the end is the most important time.
The case, exactly the case, gentlemen. I've been watching for the last, 8 or 9 laps right here in Bill Elliott's pit. No emotion at all, no concern that $10,000 was up. They actually just sat there and watched the car go by. In timing, I really think that right now, the fastest car continues to be number 9, but rather than making up 2 laps like he did last year, he's playing a cat and mouse game. Waiting maybe 50, 60 miles to go in the race before he turns his final ace face up. Now for some more information from pit road, let's go to my colleague, Dick Berggren.
Well, Jack, there's disappointment in Sterling Marlin's pit there, pushing the car backwards down pit road. The engine is silent. They simply lifted the hood when Sterling came in, took a look, and parked it.
A tough break for Sterling Marlin, who was running so well and who was in hopes of winning his first Winston Cup race here this weekend. Well, you can see the cars going to the inside coming down the backstretch, and that is exactly the line that Grant Adcox took yesterday in winning the ARCA race. So perhaps those drivers were watching that race and took a lesson from Grant, who pretty much dominated that ARCA competition yesterday, trying to break the draft going to the inside as they come off the second turn and down the backstretch. Here is Dale Earnhardt crossing the stripe and completing lap number 53 in the lead, followed by Allison, then Bill Elliott, and then Kyle Petty. So we will be back with more of our live coverage of the Winston 500. That last lap, by the way, run at 203.8 miles an hour. We'll be right back. Back at Talladega, and there you see another lead change. Bill Elliott asserts himself to the inside and passes Dale Earnhardt, at least momentarily, for the lead. But Elliott gets a little wide in turn number 4, and Earnhardt is right there to move alongside with him. They are door handle to door handle through the tri-oval. Here they come. Who's going to lead this lap? Well, Elliott just by a nose.
You sure? It's really hard to tell. The pride of the Ford Motor Company on the high side, Henry's, and the pride of the General Motor Chevrolet Corporation on the low side. Dale Earnhardt, who, as we told you earlier, and Earnhardt, I think, is caught behind slower traffic. No, he picks up a draft, and you see it propels him and almost slingshots him, as we used to say, down the backstretch.
It's unbelievable what the draft will do. It really is. That Connie Saylor car to the inside provided some momentum. Well, let's go down to Dick Berggren in the pit area.
And I'm with a very disappointed Sterling Marlin. He qualified 5th, was running well, but you're out of it. What's happened to you?
Well, we cut a right rear down early in the race and got 2 laps down, but the car, this Bullseye Chevrolet really ran good, and I honestly think we had, if not, they were one of the 2 fastest cars here. On the start, I was just laying back and letting everybody sort itself out, and looks like we may have burned a piston. We had a tire going down at the time we burned the piston, so it just wasn't our day, but if we can ever get together and finish the race, I think we're going to do something.
What looked very strong to you out there?
Well, Ironhead looks pretty strong, and which Bill, I don't know what Bill's doing. He could be just riding, and I think the 3 and a 9 is pretty stout.
How about Kyle Petty? What do you think of his performance so far?
Well, I didn't see him, the start of the race, and we had that trouble, and he come on with me, and he's going up through the field, so you may have to watch Kyle.
For those of you who don't know, by the way, Ironhead is an affectionate nickname for one Dale Earnhardt.
Yeah, I was going to clarify that. Thank you, Dick. Yep. Ironhead is an affectionate name that Dale Earnhardt has.
And it came from a very legitimate source. His father's nickname was Ironheart. That was Ralph's nickname, and that's how they got Ironhead for Dale.
Well, Ironhead is leading at this point. Bill Elliott is running in second position. And then back to third is Bobby Allison. But someone who is still in the lead lap and someone that you cannot count out, well, we'll watch Bill Elliott go into the lead again. We were going to go back and watch the progress of someone else. We'll do that in just a second. Bill Elliott, meanwhile, in the lead once again, having passed Earnhardt at the end of the backstretch. That driver we were going to tell you about, Darrell Waltrip. He is still in the lead lap. And as a matter of fact, he has moved up nicely. He had a very poor qualifying performance this weekend. He was 24th fastest at 204.335, but he is now running in 9th spot. Darrell Waltrip from Franklin, Tennessee. And we had an opportunity to talk with Darrell Waltrip during the early part of the weekend. Dick Berggren had the question about drafting.
There doesn't seem to be as much drafting. They don't seem to be running as close together. Has there been a change with the new body styles?
No, it's not that. We're going fast. We're just going too fast. We need more room to race. We're going into corners harder, and we're going up the track faster, and the bumps are more severe. You know, if you just consider how many feet per second we're moving, and once you start going over 200 miles an hour, that just escalates so quickly, and driver reaction time is much less. It may be fun to hear about 212, but it isn't fun to be hearing about it when you're in it.
I find that a very interesting comment on the behalf of Darrell Waltrip. He seems to say that he thinks 200 miles an hour is too fast to be traveling and racing at.
Well, you never know. When Darrell is talking, you know, Darrell is a master strategist, Bob. And one thing about Darrell, no matter what the speed or conditions, he's one of the very best.
No question about that. Darrell Waltrip, car number 11, owned by, of course, Junior Johnson. We're watching Buddy Baker and Darrell Waltrip on the racetrack, and right behind Darrell Waltrip is Benny Parsons in car number 55. But remember, Benny is a lap down to the field, having made a pit stop just a few laps ago.
And there is a car missing from that pack. They've been running 9th through 12th basically for the last really 50 green flag laps, only 61 laps into this race. It's a green machine that's been running pretty well. Came here with an extraordinarily modified body style that they've been told to reconstruct and change for next week at Atlanta. He has dropped off the pace. And that is Joe Ruttman, but right now some more progress on the Woodmobile, the Wood Brothers car number 7.
And for that, we'll go to Jack Arute, who's with Leonard Wood.
Well, this is the crew chief for the car. Leonard, you got an awful lot more speed today. You seem to just carve the way to the front this afternoon. Did you make some changes on the car?
No, we just kind of fine-tuned it, and we just kind of letting him run what he feels comfortable at, and looks pretty well. We'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Well, now Dale Earnhardt just came into the pits. When's your next pit stop?
We're getting ready to stop in just about one lap.
Well, you got to go to work. We'll let you go.
So regular pit stops are occurring as Dale Earnhardt has been in and out in a very short time. Joe Ruttman, who was falling off the pace before just a lap or so ago, is in also. But it appears to be pretty much a routine pit stop for Joe. No, it is not. They raised the hood on the car as we watch from inside the vehicle itself. Our in-car camera, you can see them wiping the windshield, but they have had the hood up. Now they're still examining the front end of the race car. This is not a routine pit stop. Once again, let's go down to the pit area.
Well, I'm with Neil Bonnet, and he's behind the pit wall in the garage. There's a crew member in the car with him. The carburetor is off. Neil, fuel problems continuing.
I'll tell you, Dick, it's a shame. You know, we worked yesterday and had the car run to 208, 210 in a draft.
Trouble on the backstretch.
There's a spin on the racetrack.
Crash.
Yellow flag on the racetrack.
Nobody. Go ahead, Bob.
Several cars involved. I cannot make out the numbers.
Kyle Petty, Cale Yarborough are 2 of them. It looks like Trevor Boyce is a 3rd one, the number 6 car. But Kyle Petty and Cale Yarborough were 2 of the cars definitely involved.
This is off of corner number 2 at the entrance to the backstretch. We can see some cars sitting to the inside of the racetrack in the grass. Now Kyle Petty, it appears, on the far right side of your screen begins to move away. But the other 2 cars are still stalled in the infield.
Jeff Bodine is showing some smoke. We believe, yes, definitely he has some damage to the left front. Bodine involved in the altercation also. Heavy damage in the left front to Jeff Bodine's car.
Well, Jeff Bodine's chances of winning this race appear to have diminished significantly. Of course, if you win 3 of the 4 so-called Big 4, the bonus of $1 million, he wanted very much to add this win today, so when he can only have 1 more of the 2 to win after this and pick up the million. We'll have a replay of it and try to determine what happened.
There is Jeff Bodine trying to move underneath Trevor Boyce. There's a spin up front. Looks like Yarborough had gone around first. Here comes Petty to the inside trying to avoid. Right behind us to the right of the screen, here comes Trevor Boyce and Jeff Bodine trying to take evasive action. Obviously, they came together, made no contact with Cale, but Cale appeared to be the one who precipitated that. Don't know if something broke in the car or what, but it occurred ahead of Jeff Bodine and Kyle Petty.
And pit action is underway as Bill Elliott is in for a routine stop. Right behind him, the Darrell Waltrip behind Waltrip, Jeff Bodine as the crew works on that car, headed by Gary Nelson, trying to bend the sheet metal in such a way that it does not rub against a tire and they can get Jeff back out on the racetrack.
Boy, just before that caution flag, 25 cars remained on the lead lap. It was a highly competitive field despite the 202, 203, 205 mile per hour speed. That number of cars had yet to be lapped. They were coming up to put a lap on Trevor Boyce, who was the 25th car in that pack, but behind the first five, Buddy Baker, Morgan Shepherd, there is Earnhardt back in the pits. Bill Elliott is back in the pits, back on the track. Joe Rutten was running 9th and Waltrip was running 10th.
All this occurring with 65 laps in out of 188. That will make up this Winston 500 here at Talladega. There is Dale Earnhardt moving back onto the racetrack. And here comes Kyle Petty with no left front wheel, it appears. He's dragging the rim, headed for the pit area.
Kyle first made contact. Perhaps it was with Trevor. We never did see that on the screen. He moved down on the infield. It may just have been a collision with the earth and embankment, although the way the front of the car is dented in the middle, looks like he did rear end somebody. But boy, what a disappointment for this young driver who is going so well and so easily. We just finished talking with Leonard, his crew chief, and then this comes down on his lap.
Yeah, it has to be a disappointment because Kyle was running so well in that 711 Ford. Now the crew goes to work on it with the sledgehammer, trying to get the bodywork away from the tires. Well, while we are under a caution flag, we'll take another break and return with more live coverage of the Winston 500. The yellow flag remains out here at Talladega because of an accident on the backstretch, and apparently it was precipitated by this car and driver combination. This is the Trevor Boyce machine. Apparently it was the first to lose control on the backstretch, and he gathered with him Cale Yarborough and others, including Kyle Petty and Jeff Bodine. You can see Kyle's car, rather Cale's car, is on the back of the wrecker. Kyle Petty has already moved behind the wall back to the garage area. They're doing work on that car, and so has Jeff Bodine.
Kyle moved back to the garage area with haste. Looked like he had hopes of getting back. They were pushing very slowly Jeff's car, and you see Cale's right there.
So right now the speed is reduced to probably around 60 or 70 miles an hour as the cars follow the pace car down the backstretch. But they are moving at tremendous speed here this weekend at Talladega. And Jack Arute had an opportunity to examine more closely the speed they are traveling.
When you first come to Talladega, the thing that you're impressed with is the fact that these race cars cover over a football field a second. Now, for illustrative purposes, what we thought we would do would be to compare that distance traveled by a race car with that traveled by a pace car and by a football player. Now, we couldn't put a football field on the backstretch here, so what we've done is we've laid out 100 yards in 10-yard increments with these orange cones. And we've asked Bobby Hillen Jr. from Midland, Texas to volunteer his services because he was a former football player in high school. We asked him to run through the area, first as a football player, then drive through the area in the pace car, and then travel down it in his own Miller American Buick number 8. Bobby Hillen, number 8, in a three-point stance, waiting for the snap of the ball at Talladega. He's off, he's got the ball 10, 20 to the 30-yard line. He still shows some of his high school form, but a fire suit and driving shoes are a tad different than pads and a tearaway jersey. Traveling at 18 miles per hour, he covers the 100 yards in 11.5 seconds. Now, when Bobby moved to the pace car, he clipped the 100 yards much quicker. Traveling at 55 miles per hour, his time was 3.4 seconds. Onto the race cars. Hillen ducks to the inside of Jeff Bodine, and as quick as a hand clap, he's through the football field at over 205 miles per hour. Now, where was the pace car at the end of 1 second? The distance traveled 27 yards. Now, for Bobby Hillen, using foot power, the distance traveled is even less.
Using his own feet, only 9 yards. So at a football field a second, Winston Cup crews must work quick, or all that a driver gains on the track can go away in the pits as fast as one claps his hands.
And our hats off to Bobby Hillen Jr. for participating in that piece. And he was working under some rather painful conditions because he had a burn on his heel that kind of bothered him. And but instead he chose to help us out with that little feature, and we appreciate that very much. So 68 laps completed now here at Talladega as the field remains under caution. The leader, Dale Earnhardt, and we will be right back.
Back in the Talladega garage area, wounded Jeff Bodine has his car here. And Jeffrey, what happened out there?
Hi, Jackie. Hi, Matt and Barry. Looked like Cale Yarborough blew up. He'd been leaking something. My windshield was covered with grease or oil or something, and I couldn't see, so I'd backed off some, but I wanted to stay in that draft. And he went into turn 1 and blew his engine. Kyle Petty and I tried to steer through it, but Kyle got in his oil, spun around. When the smoke cleared, Kyle was right in front of me, and I just bumped him a little bit. It really didn't hurt the chassis of the car, just bent the sheet metal and bent the bracket that hold the radiator and the oil cooler. If we can get that straightened out, we'll be in good shape and get back out racing.
Well, that's what he intends to do, but meanwhile, about 35 other cars have come up to full song down the backstretch at over 200 miles per hour. They're under green. Let's go on pit road, however, to Dick Bergman.
One of those cars that's under full song is Dale Earnhardt. I'm with his car owner, Richard Childress. You pitted under the green and you pitted under the yellow. Why, Richard?
Well, we pitted a couple laps early because we put a new engine in this morning and changed the carburetor. We really didn't know what kind of mileage we was going to get. And then after the caution came back in and out and we got caught up, we just put on 2 left sides the second time.
How is your mileage?
It's back up where it ought to be. I think we're going to be okay now.
All right, so Dale Earnhardt, there was some discussion about him losing a lap, but he has not. He remains on the lead lap and, as a matter of fact, moving toward the front of the field. The lead at this moment is held by Bill Elliott.
Elliott is back up front again. There's Bobby Allison. There is Buddy Baker going to the inside, coming out of turn number 2. Baker is running the top 10 all day long in that Oldsmobile, the Crisco Olds. It's his best effort, I would say, for the 1986 season. There he is.
Buddy Baker has moved all the way up to 3rd position and looking very strong.
Oh, boy, getting right out of shape. Still sliding through turn 4. Buddy Baker trying to gather it back in. I think he's done it, but he lost some ground.
Yeah, he did. Dale Earnhardt took advantage of the slide that Buddy Baker had there in the 4th turn, and Earnhardt moves along side by side with Buddy, but Buddy has things gathered in again. They're side by side across the line. Earnhardt with just a very slight advantage. Greg Sachs and Phil Parsons both are sticking right on the back bumpers of Buddy Baker and Dale Earnhardt.
And they are 2 cars in the lead lap. Benny is right there behind them in the black and white, number 55, right behind his brother Phil, but he is 1 lap down.
Unfortunately, Cale Yarborough has had to call it quits. Let's go to Jack Arute.
When they write the definition of tough in the next dictionary, they'll just put Cale Yarborough's picture next to it. Tough has been the way your season has run all year, Cale.
Well, we sure had a lot of tough luck this year. Still early in the race, Jackie, and things weren't going too bad. We made a chance to change on the first pit stop. The car was working better, and engine let go, and that's it.
What exactly happened, though, when it just blew up? It was all hell broke loose.
Yeah, the engine blew up going in turn 1, down between turns 1 and 2, and I spun in my own oil, and that was all it was to it. The rest of the fellas spun in my oil and put some of them out too, I think.
Well, there's always Talladega in the springtime.
We'll be back.
That's the story from here.
All right, so Trevor Boyes, whom we had indicated may have started that crash in the backstretch, apparently didn't as Yarborough's engine let go, and that's the reason why we had the multi-car accident back there. Well, Buddy Baker and others continue to dice for position. Meanwhile, back a little bit further, some 2 abreast racing going on.
We think we're picking up a little bit of sheet metal working loose. Yeah, on the front end, the low side there of underneath Joe Rutland's grill, you can see some sheet metal working loose. They did extensive remodeling work trying to make that car set aerodynamically just the way they wanted it this week, and some of it has worked loose.
Well, Joe's on the move, though, to the inside of the racetrack, going around Rusty Wallace. Look at this, 3 and 4 abreast now down the backstretch as they really begin to fight for position. There's a close look at that piece of metal that's on the front end of Joe Ruttman's car.
It's got to have some effect. It's in a really critical spot. You can see Ruttman just doesn't have the adhesion going through the corner. The downforce just isn't there. He's got to be wondering just exactly what's going on. Looks like he's coming in this time.
Yes, he is. He's low on the tri-oval and coming into the pit area. Joe Ruttman from Upland, California, and the number 26 Kenny Bernstein-owned Quaker State machine.
Joe told me before the race this morning that they didn't have a chance. I'm sure he ran much better than he anticipated, but he said, we know that Bill is quick. I have the feeling that if Bill stays in this race all day long, there's a look that Joe is seeing right now as the crew is going to work underneath the front bumper. He said, we made a lot of changes after practice yesterday. Some of them were radical. This is not exactly a test session for us, but we're not conceding this race, but our chances are really slim in this situation here. It really just about seals his fate.
So they got the debris off the front of the car and they changed rubber on the right side, and Joe Ruttman moving back out onto the racetrack, but here comes the leaders and Joe will go a lap down. Bill Elliott and Bobby Allison have pulled far away from the rest of the field. There they are. Elliott, as a matter of fact, has quite a substantial lead on Bobby Allison, first and second here, but there is a wide gap between second and third, and in third place right now is Dale Earnhardt. He's been running around 204.7. That's why we've been clocking him up here, but we'll get a clock on him next time around and see if he is continuing to set that kind of a pace.
Everybody told me, at least those that I encountered this morning in wandering through the pits, that there were only two General Motors cars that they felt could keep pace all day long with Bill, and that was Bobby Allison, the guy who's running second right now, and Jeff Bodine, who was sitting in the pits. Earnhardt showed some strength a little earlier. He may have been hiding in the bushes as we start to time this one lap for Bill Elliott, but what everybody was thinking, everything they felt after practice and qualifying, it looks like it's coming true. Bobby Allison looks like he has a shot, but maybe it's the only one left. And I know we're only 77 laps into this race, but Elliott does look his old strong self on the super speedways.
While we watch Elliott go through turns 3 and 4 as we time him, here are some of the cars that have lost a lap. Rusty Wallace is a lap down, so is Tommy Ellis, the number 44 of Terry Labonte. Benny Parsons is a lap down, and so is Tim Richmond. Now here comes Elliott through the tri-oval, approaching the start-finish line. Completing lap number 78, the clock stops at 47 seconds flat, translating to a speed of 203.744.
On the other hand, Bob just gave you a partial list of those who have lost at least a lap. There are still a number of cars on the lead lap, including kind of from back to the front. As we look at Greg Sachs, he is one of them. He's running about 12th or 13th right now. Rick Wilson is still in the lead lap. Labonte, Bob just told you, is a lap down. Make that fourth on Greg Sachs. Wow, that happened suddenly and quickly. And Sachs
and look at this, going for
inside
third.
Of Dale Earnhardt. Greg Sachs, who won that surprise race, at least a surprise to many people, at Daytona last year, is now running fast. Buddy Baker's in that pack, and so is Rick Wilson in that black number 4. Earnhardt continues to lead. Another thing I heard this morning was that a lot of people were saying if there is a dark horse in this race, it might be Rick Wilson in that black number 4.
Right now, Earnhardt leads this pack down into turn number 1. He's running in third. Greg Sachs is fourth. Terry Labonte on the low side of Greg Sachs is a lap down. But certainly Greg Sachs, who of course won a Winston Cup race last year at Daytona, the Firecracker 400, is performing very well here in the early going of the Winston 500 at Talladega in 4th position in that car sponsored by TRW.
As we continue to watch Greg and Dale and those other guys running 4th and 5th, partial list of the mid-pack cars still in the lead lap. Phil Parsons, Pancho Carter, Bobby Hillin Jr., Harry Gant, Ken Schrader, and Ricky Rudd.
Earnhardt firmly established right now in 3rd position. Greg Sachs being drafted by Terry Labonte, who did lose a lap a little bit earlier.
Greg Sachs, who of course is working for the Dygar team, and Bill Gardner told us this week, yeah, you're right, we need to reorganize, but we're trying to build confidence back into the team.
Bill Elliott, awesome Bill from Dawsonville, leading the Winston 500 with 80 laps complete. We are back at Alabama International Motor Speedway, the world's fastest racetrack, where today 42 drivers took the green flag about an hour and a half ago For the Winston 500, the field averaged 207 miles an hour. Bill Elliott had the pole at 212 miles an hour, and he is continuing to lead. One of the drivers doing very well is Rick Wilson from Bartow, Florida, driving car number 4.
Their fingers crossed on Rick Wilson's team because, Bob, believe it or not, they blew their best engine trying to qualify that car. They put their backup engine in it, and on the backstretch on his qualifying effort, the car came out of gear. When they got the car into the garage area, the tachometer read 9,800 RPM. 78, that's okay. 98, that's usually the verge of destruction. Now that's the same engine in the car right now, so you can best believe Rick Wilson and his whole crew had their fingers crossed that that thing stays together for the whole race today.
Well, he's running in 6th position right now, drafting behind Greg Sachs as they head down the backstretch, but certainly he's performing very well.
Tony Glover, who is the son of a past racing driver, Gene, is the crew chief on this car, and they get a lot of help from Dick Hutcherson. So they've got good help there. They've got some factory attention in the Rick Wilson car. As I told you earlier, they were telling me this morning, and I mean other teams, that if there is a dark horse in this race, it would be Rick Wilson. Rick really hasn't been close to winning a Winston Cup race, but he has shown those moments, those signs that he has the potential if the right pieces all fall in place, that someday he will be a consistent front runner, and he's up there right now. Maybe this is the start of something for Rick.
We are told that this is the car that Lake Speed will drive in next week's Atlanta Invitational race. Lake, of course, was voted into the starting lineup, but has since lost his regular ride, and so it appears as if he will be driving this car number 4 next Sunday when we televise live the Winston Atlanta Invitational.
Rick Wilson, who finished 6th in this year's Daytona 500, his best finish so far this season, continuing to follow Greg Sachs right behind Buddy Baker. Boy, he must feel great. This is an outstanding performance for Buddy Baker. You know, whenever you have a dry spell or a particular period of time where if you've been a great racing driver, you run up front, you don't run there, people start whispering, start talking, but Buddy has got to be quieting some critics today because he is having a nice strong day in the Crisco 88.
Richard Petty is lurking in the shadows also, and so is Morgan Shepherd as they try to catch up with this pack and hook on to the draft. Richard Petty has been running up front all day long. Kyle Petty, meanwhile, has come back out onto the racetrack. You'll remember that he was involved in the skirmish out in the backstretch with Cale Yarborough and others. A lot of body damage to that car. But Kyle has made the repairs, and he is back on the Talladega, Alabama Motor Speedway. Now Richard has caught up with Rick Wilson, and so he joins this procession.
Aerodynamics, of course, they're always a very big part of the story here at Talladega, but this week it really was something different. All the cars came with special little modifications. They were some of them hints at modifications, and some of them were blatant, and some of them were set down, and some of them were approved, and some of them were told to make changes before the very next race. But everybody's car had his own little touch on it, the team's own little touch in terms of modifications. Richard Petty's car perhaps looked the most like it has throughout the season. The car leading this pack, that of Buddy Baker, really looked different in front. Matter of fact, the nose looked a little bit like a narrowed down ASA nose, but the Oldsmobile is one of the more aerodynamic cars that has been produced in 1986, and maybe it's working well for Buddy. Maybe that's helping make some of the difference here at Talladega.
Richard going high through the tri-oval, running alongside Phil Parsons, and that is a battle for position.
Yeah, Phil, who had that frightening accident here where he flipped over some 8 or 9 times through turn number 1, turn number 2 a couple years ago, is also turning in a nice strong performance. He's another one of those drivers. There is Richard and brother Benny on the screen, who really needed to do well. There's Phil in the 1986 number 66 Skoal Bandit, and he really needed to do well like so many others did here this week at Talladega to kind of help propel him through the middle part of the season, and he's getting the job done.
There's a Motorsports Hall of Fame located here at Talladega, and if you travel through it and look at the displays that they have over there, one of the cars on display is Phil's wrecked car that Larry talked about, and boy, there isn't hardly anything left of that car, and the roll cage is bent and battered, all except right above the driver's head, and it is intact. That's the reason that Phil really got out of that wreck with only minor injuries. Now, Ricky Rudd has come into the pit area. Ricky won last weekend at Martinsville on the short track. However, He's making an unscheduled pit stop at this moment.
Yeah, he had come back, or as a matter of fact, had backed up from running in the pack of like the first 10 or 12 cars. And looks terminal. There are a lot of shaking heads and some casual movements there as they begin to push the car back. Bud Moore was with the team this week. We're very happy to have him back here where he belongs on the Winston Cup Stock Car Trail.
But the car itself is going behind the wall, and Ricky Rudd will not have victory number 2 in a row for this year. The lead continues to be held by Bill Elliott, and he is, as many people predicted, pulling away from the field.
Yeah, Elliott right now is beginning to look very strong. Bill Elliott, who has had that season that has left some people scratching their heads, but the new rules, the new cars really have made a difference. But all along we felt that if he was to reemerge, if he was to have a good race anywhere, particularly in the first half of the season, it would be here at Talladega. He has practiced, we are told, only 2 or 3 times. Every time he came here, he was in the 210-mile-an-hour range. Came here, was no surprise when he went 212. It may have been somewhat of a surprise when the entire field was filled with 200-plus qualifiers. As a matter of fact, Alan Kowicki and Mark Martin were 2 drivers who qualified at above 200 miles an hour, stood on their times, and did not make the show. There's Bobby Allison, second fast qualifier, 209.7 miles an hour. He's having a good day, too.
We're at Talladega, Alabama, and presenting live for you the Winston 500. Now ESPN and NASCAR present a track fact.
The application of springs. It's an area of an extremely individual expression for every single team. Now, we've talked about spring weights on ESPN before. Now, what exactly is that? Well, it's a rating. And what it means is that if a spring is rated at 500 pounds, what it means is that for every 500 pounds of pressure that's applied to that spring, it will compress 1 inch when out on the racetrack at speed. Here's what a rear spring looks like. It's rated at about 500 pounds. That's relatively universal from track to track. Here's a spring for the right front of a short track, 11, 1,200, 1,300 pounds. But here at Talladega, at 200 plus miles an hour, this rating may be as high as 4,400 pounds on the right front. Now, what does that mean? What that indicates is that that car is undergoing a total of 750,000 pounds of kinetic inertia when it's out there on the racetrack. That's about 7 times what your pleasure car back home is expected to undergo.
Thank you, Larry. This track fact brought to you by Levi Garrett Chewing Tobacco. Time after time, the quality comes through. And with just a little less than 100 laps to go, Bill Elliott continues to lead the Winston 500. We'll be right back. The yellow flag is out once again over Alabama International Motor Speedway. It involves an accident down in turn number 1, and the driver involved is Michael Waltrip.
Mike Waltrip, number 23, who turned 23 just week. He had his best career finish last week at Martinsville. This was his first Talladega start in a Winston Cup car. Has come to an abrupt halt here in turn number 1. Apparently things are okay medically speaking down there. I see no panic and nobody running over the car. The caution flag is out. Michael doing the safe thing and staying in the car until the emergency crews get there to remove the wreckage.
And it should bring in the leaders for some pit stops. As we look down pit road, we can see that just about everybody has come in for another stop. 94 laps completed, 188 is the goal today, and on top is Bill Elliott. On the bottom is Bobby Allison, the first 2 runners right now. Work completed on the right side of Elliott's car. They're already working on the left side of Bobby Allison's Miller American Buick.
Yes, red and white is the color of the day, because those are the only 2 colors that have really been able to sustain themselves up top. We've seen Earnhardt up there trying to stay with the leaders. Bodine was there just very briefly. Cale was there very early part of the race, but only the 2 of them have been the front runners.
Well, Dale Earnhardt beat Bill Elliott out of the pit area. Here comes Richard Petty out and most of the others, but Bill Elliott is going to lose the lead here, at least momentarily. Now, Ricky Rudd, last week's winner at Martinsville, already out of the race today. Here's Jackaroo.
Well, Ricky Rudd, one more time, not in victory lane, but in the garage area. What put you out?
Well, last week was good. You know, we visited victory lane, and today just wasn't our day. We got started. Something broke in the back end of the car. We think it was a ratchet or something. The car wouldn't drive right. They made some adjustments, and the car still didn't respond like we wanted to, but something finally let go on the motor. We picked up a bad vibration, and I shut it off before it went ahead and exploded.
Well, Ricky, you've had enough time out there to measure the competition. Early in the telecast, I said Elliott's going to be the man to beat. Even when he fell back to second and third, I said he was just holding back. He wasn't going to show his hand. Who do you see as the guy to beat?
Well, I really think Bill's, there's no doubt about it. He's been the strongest car all week, and I think he went up front, took the lead so he could do it, and just sort of dropped back a little bit and sort of mixed in with the competition. If I was going to bet any money, there's no doubt I'd put it on Bill Elliott. Dale Earnhardt's cars look like it's working awful good, and a couple of them are handling good, but I'd have to say my money's on Bill.
But heck, you drive a Ford. What's the difference between yours and his?
Well, I think only the number, I believe, but they sure don't run the same one at Talladega now. We go to the shorter tracks, intermediate tracks. We feel like we've got something we can run with Bill, but, if we can't do it, I'm glad to see another Ford out there doing it.
Guys, don't be surprised if next time at Talladega, Ricky Rudd's driving number 19.
Well, Ricky will be in competition next weekend and doing it very well. Our mid-race recap, and we are just past the halfway mark. Bill Elliott was the leader at the completion of 94 laps. He had led 54 of those 94, the margin about 1 second. He had completed the distance in 1 hour and 28 minutes. The average speed 161.939 miles an hour. There were 4 caution periods for a total of 18 laps. 13 cars on the lead lap out of a total of 33 still on the racetrack. As far as cars out of the race, Jody Ridley, Jim Saunders, Sterling Marlin, Neil Bonnet, Cale Yarborough, Trevor Boyes, Ricky Rudd, and Mike Waltrip. All of those drivers out of today's Winston 500 at the halfway point. Well, there are some of the photographers and spectators who are watching the action from the Union 76 ball located above pit road. We'll be back in just a moment. That game tonight between the Blues and the Flames should be a good one. We hope you'll be with us. We hope you'll stay with us for all of this Winston Cup race from Talladega. Look at the attendance here this afternoon. 130,000. That's even more than they had originally estimated. Before the race, they were saying they could gain up to 125,000, but the state troopers estimate 130,000 people are in attendance at Talladega. And in case you weren't with us at the very beginning of the broadcast, one of those 130,000, and I really hesitate to call him a race fan because I don't think a true race fan would do anything like this, but one of those fans got loose down in the infield and stole the pace car before the race started, and they had to set up a roadblock out of turn number 4 to get him off of the racetrack. That was just one of the unusual events that occurred here before we actually got the green flag. Bobby Allison is leading the Winston 500, and we'll try to call him on the radio and see how things are going out there for him.
Well, Bobby Allison finds himself deposited in the lead after this set of pit stops. But Bobby, what about that Elliott car? Are you going to watch the rear bumper of that car and try and keep pace with him all day, or are you going to run your own race from here? He certainly looks strong.
Well, the car is running real good, but Elliott is awful strong. I cannot do anything with them once we get out to clear.
Does it look like the car's to a situation where as the race wears on, perhaps on subsequent pit stops, you may be able to make changes to get just a few more miles per hour?
Well, I really don't know. The car is very good the way it is.
Thank you, Bobby. We know that it's been a tough race up to now, trying to keep up with that number 9, but so far, comparing yourself to everybody else, you're doing the best.
They're still
well, I'm pleased with that, and we'll just keep on trying. We may be able to make this a little bit better as the race goes on.
All right, Bobby Allison, the current leader. They're still cleaning up the debris down in turn number 1. There was a lot of dust and dirt kicked up on the racetrack, and they're sweeping it off and making the final adjustments down there so that we can go back to a green condition.
Just one comment more about Ricky Rudd. His performance on the short tracks. There have been 4 this year. He's had 1 crash early this year at Richmond, and in the last 3 short tracks, he's had 2 seconds and a first.
All right, the yellow remains out. This is lap number $99. Now they will not pay $10,000 to the leader of lap number 100 because we're going to complete lap number 100 under yellow. What they're going to do is pay the $10,000 on the second consecutive green lap after we go back to racing conditions. So that will be in a few more laps because the track crew is still down at the end of the main stretch near turn number 1, cleaning up the debris. So with thousands of spectators looking on here and gathering in the bright sunshine in central Alabama, we will take this break and be right back with more from Alabama International Motor Speedway as we present live for you the Winston 500. Bobby Allison is the current leader. This race here at Talladega has had a history of upset winners. Richard Brickhouse won this race in 1969. James Hilton was a victor here in 72. Dick Brooks won in 73. Lenny Pond in 78. And Ron Bouchard collected his only Winston Cup victory here in an unbelievable finish back in 1981.
And the people who are on the lead lap still and might fall into that category as potential upset winners: Greg Sachs, number 10, Rick Wilson, number 4, who's never won, Phil Parsons, number 66, never won a Winston Cup race, and Bobby Hillin Jr. They are among the 13 cars still on the lead lap.
101 laps will be completed when they come down, and we will get the green flag this time by as the crowd rises to its feet to watch whether or not Bobby Allison can hang on to the lead, or whether Dale Earnhardt, who is right behind him, will grab it, or if Bill Elliott can continue his outstanding performance here this weekend and go into the lead once again. They come down for a resumption of the race. Now remember, the second time around it will pay $10,000. Harold Kinder waves the green. We are back under racing conditions at Talladega. Two abreast start down into turn number 1, and Bobby Allison has the lead. A slower car sandwiches himself between Bobby Allison and second place Dale Earnhardt in turn number 2. They come off the corner and down the flat backstretch.
Don't know it's necessarily a slower car. It's Terry Labonte, but he does have at least 1 lap in arrears to the rest of the field. But his insulation might protect Allison and propel him to $10,000 here. Earnhardt looking for a place to go.
Down on the low side of the racetrack, moving alongside Terry Labonte as Labonte moves high and gives Dale the room. Here they come off of the 4th corner. This completes lap number 102. Next time around, the leader will collect $10,000 from Kodak. Bobby Allison has the lead right now, and he collected $10,000 earlier in the race at lap 50.
This will be the first lap at full speed since this green flag started, and as we've told you now, it's worth $10,000. Timing it to see if their race pace is still above 202, 203 miles an hour.
About the fastest lap we have timed in the race has been around 205, 206 miles an hour by Elliott. Look at Elliott move to the outside of Dale Earnhardt. Elliott is going for second place. Elliott is high on the racetrack and losing a little bit of momentum. Dale Earnhardt holds second place, and Waltrip is in trouble as smoke is pouring from that race car.
They're going to race to the yellow for $10,000.
Here they come. Will it be Earnhardt or will it be Allison? Earnhart is to the inside, and Dale Earnhardt is going to collect $10,000.
Oh.
Now, is that the paying lap, or because of the yellow? Yes, it is the paying lap, despite the fact that they raced to the yellow. And Darrell Waltrip is pulling the car behind the wall immediately. A tremendous amount of smoke coming from the rear end of that Budweiser Chevrolet. So Dale Earnhardt led Bobby Allison across the stripe and collects $10,000. Bill Elliott was also right there in the hunt, but he was third when they crossed the stripe.
So Darrell Waltrip, who was showing a little bit of consistency here today, running in the top 4, top 5, continues to have his partial woes of recent weeks stay with him. He did become the points leader, you know, about a month ago, and everybody said, but boy, when you see Waltrip leading the points this early in the season, what's that going to mean for the rest of the year? But his problems the last couple of weeks have given everybody else a chance to catch back up.
By the way, that last lap under green that paid the $10,000 was run at a speed of 203.331, and Dale Earnhardt was the leader when they crossed the line. Darrell Waltrip is getting out of his car down in the pit area. We're keeping an eye on him, and as soon as he is out of the car and can talk with our reporters, we will get a word from Darrell, and now he is, so let's go to Dick Bergman.
Well, Darrell, the smoke's still pouring out of the car.
It blew. I had just called in on the radio and told them that the oil pressure had been acting up a little bit, and now it's acting up a whole lot.
Who is strong? Who have you been watching in the race besides Elliott? Is anybody able to overhaul him, in your opinion?
It's hard to say. I don't think so. He looks like he's just riding right now. Basically what we were doing, we were just trying to make it to the last part of the race and then go racing. So it's a bad deal for us.
But this is the first time you've dropped out all year. That's not bad at all.
Second week in a row. Hi, Mom and Dad, and everybody back home.
That Darrell Waltrip disappointed to be in the garage for sure.
Yeah, he was the points leader going into today's race with 1,247. Only 5 behind was Earnhardt, so Dale could very easily move into the Winston Cup point standing lead after this race. Terry Labonte was 3rd. He's off the pace today. Rusty Wallace was 4th, and he is a lap down. Kyle Petty was involved in an accident earlier, and he is a lap down in this event. He was in 5th place in the point standings coming into today's Winston 500. And you know, Darrell Waltrip, we understand, is going to be in the broadcast booth with us next weekend as we present the Winston Invitational. So we will look forward to having him up here in the broadcast booth with us next Sunday. We'll be back in just a moment as we continue to cover live the Winston 500.
Well, I'm with the other Waltrip. This is Mike Waltrip. The bad news, he's out of the race with a very damaged car. The good news is he's pretty much okay. It was quite a lick.
Yeah, we were going down into 1, and for all things to happen, the fan blade broke, and when that breaks, it just rips the water pump apart. All the water went underneath the wheels, and I just sort of closed my eyes and slammed on the brakes, and once it started sliding, there isn't anything you can do, and it's unfortunate. We were having such a good run. It's unbelievable how fast these cars are, but how comfortable they are. You can really run around here 202 or 3 miles an hour and just hang on and really have a good, safe race, and I guess I'm walking, talking proof of that, and I'm thankful for it.
Who taught you to close your eyes before you were going to crash at 200 miles an hour?
Well, I started to look around a little bit to see which direction I was headed in, and once I saw that big white thing at the top of the bank up there, I decided to close my eyes was the best thing. I had never been taught that, but I think I like it so far.
Well, I'll tell you, this guy's going to be a racer. To survive a thing like this car is really trashed, and be able to smile about it standing here in the garage is quite a compliment.
Yeah, the car looked very bad, but we're glad to see Michael Waltrip in good shape. Well, the yellow remains out. We'll try to call Benny Parsons on the radio here.
Benny, I know you're down a lap and things are a little rocky right now, but we just listened to Mike Waltrip, who was involved in that crash in turn 1. He says the new cars are fast, but they're comfortable at over 200 miles an hour. Agree?
Yeah, you know, if it can be comfortable over 200 miles an hour, I think these cars are, Larry. Yeah, the cars do feel pretty good. These mechanics, all my guys have certainly done a good job on this thing.
Benny, was there anything out there that was a surprise? Did the car react differently in the draft, perhaps going into the corners than what you anticipated?
Not really. It's been a typical day so far.
Benny, knowing the ESPN unofficial pool, you drew the number 55. You think that's a good or a bad omen?
It don't look good right now, but we still got a long way to go.
Okay, Benny, we're looking forward to the rest of today and the next couple weeks, too. Seeing you up here in the broadcast booth. Good luck to you.
Benny is 14th, a lap down, but as he indicated, certainly not out of the race. Remember last year, Bill Elliott came from 2 laps down to win, so Benny is in not too bad a position. And another driver who has come back out onto the racetrack is Jeff Bodine. Jeff, of course, involved in that incident on the backstretch with Cale Yarborough and Kyle Petty, but Jeff is back out on the racetrack. Now, the lights are still on. However, the one more lap signal has been given to the field. And while they make this one final lap under caution, we'll take another break and be back for the resumption of this Winston Cup race from Talladega, Alabama. Those cars you saw there in the 1951 Indy 500 promo, a little bit different than what we're seeing compete on the high banks of Talladega this afternoon. These are Winston Cup stock cars, and they're traveling at over 200 miles an hour. We have just gone back to green on lap number 108. Dale Earnhardt is the leader. Bobby Allison second. Bill Elliott is third, and Benny Parsons is trying to get his lap back. Right now he pulls ahead of Dale Earnhardt. So if we have a caution at this time, and if Benny can beat him back to the stripe, Benny will make up the lap.
Boy, what a tough order that is for Benny. He survived that first lap under green pretty well. He held his ground going down the backstretch. Rusty Wallace helped him along a little bit. You saw him move down low. Rusty looks in the center of the track trying to get by. Rusty falls all the way back about 5 or 6 car lengths behind Benny, and Benny survives at least one lap with Earnhardt, Allison, Elliott breathing down his neck. Boy, that is just too much to hold on to. I'll tell you, those guys are really steamrolling.
And Benny cannot hold on to the position ahead of Earnhardt, and he begins to drop back now as Earnhardt and Bobby Allison both pass Benny. Now here comes Bill Elliott to the inside, passing not only Benny, but also passing Bobby Allison. Earnhardt is now the leader, but Bill Elliott is knocking on the door. He and Bobby Allison are side by side for second position in turn number 4. Here they come onto the tri-oval once again. It's a battle for second position, Allison and Bill Elliott.
Elliott stays downstairs in the basement where last year he picked up a lot of ground, but once again he doesn't really have the muster to put away 2 or 3. But remember, he's all the way down there in the bottom of the racetrack by himself. So without a question, he still has the superior car, but I will repeat again, he doesn't have that absolute, overwhelming, almost defeating superiority that he had a year ago.
There is Bill Elliott once again trying to make the move on Bobby Allison and Dale Earnhardt, slingshotting off of turn number, or rather the backstretch into turn number 3. And Elliott moves around both of them to the inside and grabs first position. And the crowd goes wild. They raise their hands and they shake their hats and they salute Bill Elliott, who is back on top.
He really accumulated a lot of fans last year. They've all showed up here at Talladega. They all seem to want him to do well. He got the biggest cheer when he walked out of the bus that transported all the drivers to the announcing stand for the introduction today. And they are still standing and cheering for Bill Elliott. And look at him go. Right away, he's 10 car lengths ahead.
And look at this pack of cars. Joe Ruttman, Greg Sachs running right beside him down the backstretch. Also in this pack of cars as we widen out, Richard Petty and Ron Bouchard and Morgan Shepherd and others.
Bobby Hillin Jr. is the 4th one in line on the bottom of the racetrack. He is on the lead lap. Buddy Baker is in there. Now we're zooming in on Joe Ruttman. Remember that Joe lost a lap earlier when he had to pit because it looked like he had some debris underneath the radiator. And by the way, these are the people who are 4th, 5th, and on back. Greg Sachs is 4th. Richard Petty is 5th. There you see Ron Bouchard under Richard. They're going after it for 5th position. So this is a real hot group right here running behind the leaders.
Just a great performance for Greg Sachs in car number 10. Who has not competed regularly on the Winston Cup Trail this year. He pretty much devotes his time, as he has in the previous years, to modified racing. But boy, he has sure looked good here today.
He really has, as we watch Sachs and Joe Ruttman and Richard Petty go down the backstretch. Other cars still on the lead lap that has survived this 20-lap period of yellow flag after yellow flag. Phil Parsons, Rick Wilson, Buddy Baker, we just mentioned, Dave Marcus, Bobby Hillin Jr., Morgan Shepherd, and Harry Gant.
Morgan Shepherd in car number 47, the Race Hill Farms Buick, winner at Atlanta earlier this year. Side by side with Joe Ruttman now as they cross the stripe. Now he moves ahead of Ruttman and tucks in behind Richard Petty and picks up that draft.
Morgan Shepherd was the fastest qualifier among all the Buick makes this weekend. He started this race in 6th position on the outside of row number 3. He won that race at Atlanta this year when he really had a tremendous day.
Actually, Bobby Allison was the quickest Buick. He was 2nd fastest qualifier, right behind Bill Elliott. Right, Larry?
Yeah, you're right about that.
All right. And there is Buddy Baker running ahead of Joe Ruttman on the speedway, and then Ron Bouchard as the drafting is working well here. Now, this is not the lead group of cars, but this is 4th on back.
Morgan Shepherd, of course, picking up not only that one win this year, but that was his 2nd win on the Winston Cup Trail. His best finish ever in a Winston 500 was 1982 when he finished in 5th position. He only entered one race last year here at Talladega when he finished 13th.
And one driver that has struggled all weekend, and we mean struggled. You normally don't see this guy in the back of the pack or even in the middle of the pack. Harry Gant in a Skull Bandit number 33, but this has not been a good weekend for Gant. Right now he's in 12th position, battling with Bobby Hillin, car number 8, who is in 11th.
Boy, it really has, Bob. They had some differences of opinion with the NASCAR officials over the configuration primarily of their A-pillar or the front post right over the windshield going back to the roof of the car. They were forced to take it apart and reconstruct that during the weekend. And the car, as a matter of fact, went to the grid today with gaffer's tape on the front end.
Pancho Carter, a little bit out of shape in turn number 1, scraped the wall, now drops to the low side of the racetrack, and things looks bad for Pancho Carter from Brownsburg, Indiana, as he is off the pace going down the backstretch. Whether he's going to pit or not, but it appears as if he is dropping to the low side and will come in for a stop.
Boy, he was having a good day too in the Roger Henry machine. Earlier today, he was on the lead pack. He was up to as high as 11th or 12th, and that was in the early stages of the race when most everybody was still out on the track. He seemed to have lost a little bit of the step over the last 20 laps or so, over the last 2 caution flags. You can see how the right side or the outside of the car is flattened out. Pancho has taken a trip up north to the cement there along the outside.
After next weekend's 2 races from Atlanta, we'll kind of take a break from Winston Cup racing and do a lot of IndyCar racing. And our first IndyCar broadcast will be from Milwaukee, and you can bet that this man will be among the top contenders for that. The crew goes to work on the right side of the car, but you can see the damage that is evident on the right side of the machine. Here is Bill Elliott, traveling still at 206 miles an hour in setting the pace for this Winston 500, but not in any means stretching out and pulling away from Earnhardt and Allison, who are still right with him.
You know, not only is Elliott impressive sometimes when he comes to a racetrack, as he was a number of times last year, but it's a discouraging type of dominance for the other competitors. They come here, they unload the car off the hauler, and basically they don't do anything to it. They're all set to go when they arrive at the racetrack. They pretty much know what they want to do, and maybe they change the plugs or adjust the valves, but that's about it. They know exactly what their intentions are when they arrive, the Elliott family, and Bill just sets out and systematically and methodically just gets the job done.
So it's Elliott, Earnhardt, and Allison, and then quite a ways back, but running in 4th position as we take a look at Connie Saylor's number 99 Ball Racing Chevrolet. Connie from Johnson City, Tennessee, dropped to the low side of the racetrack. Connie has been in and out of the pits quite regularly. As a matter of fact, he was in on about lap number 2, and he has been not on the pace all race long. We do have a yellow flag coming out. That last lap was timed at 205.7 miles an hour. The yellow is out, however. We do not know the exact reason for it. It is because of the 99 car, Connie Saylor, and some debris that has fallen off that race car. So this is our 6th caution period of the day.
And like 3 of them have come within the last 15 minutes. 118 laps have been completed. There'll be 188 laps in this race. 188 laps equates to 500 miles here as the leaders begin to look toward pit lane and go for some refreshments for the audience.
Yeah, they're lined up behind each other and moving into their assigned pit positions. Here they all come. Someone once said feeding time at the zoo, and this looks like exactly what it is. As Elliott and Earnhardt and Allison and Phil Parsons and Rick Wilson and the other leaders are in. Elliott is on the top and Earnhardt on the bottom. We'll see whose crew completes the work first.
The interesting thing about the start-finish line here is just at the exit to the pits here at Talladega is the start-finish line. As some of these cars pull out of the pits, perhaps you see it. We'll point it out to you a little bit, in 2 seconds here as we're looking at the 2 leaders all the way inside of the Bill Elliott car, perhaps making some weight jacking adjustments as they crawl inside and do the work quickly. Dale Earnhardt's back down on all 4 wheels. Bill starts to pull away.
Yes.
Dale starts to pull away.
Earnhardt has just suffered a very bad pit stop down here. First of all, he overshot his pit. He went a little bit further than he really wanted to. They started to put a left rear tire on. Apparently somebody decided it was the wrong left rear tire. They took it off and put yet another left rear tire on. So Allison beat him out by quite a bit.
Yeah, he really did. Dale is going to have several cars to pass if he's going to get back up into the lead serial with Allison and Elliott. Both of those had excellent pit stops. So 119 laps have been completed. We are under yellow. The standings are going to change a little because of this most recent round of pit stops. Bobby Allison is catching up with the pack after having replaced a windshield on that car. It was pretty well damaged. There is the windshield. They did replace it and get him out on the racetrack without losing a lap, but he is at the tail end of the lead serial. 34 seconds is the amount of time that it took the Bobby Allison crew to change that windshield. The green flag comes out. Look at this. They're 4 and 5 wide going into turn 1.
Boy, it's tight quarters going down there. Right now, Morgan Shepherd looking in his rearview mirror saying, boy, I'm glad I'm not in that pack. Shepherd continues on the lead pack, or the lead lap rather, as everybody is trying to filter out behind him, looking for a place to go. You can see Richard Petty, the bright Petty blue and STP orange in the bottom. There goes Tim Richmond in the front, getting the lap down. Here comes Elliott. Richmond has been off the pace all day. Elliott's been on the pace without any question. Elliott has moved around Morgan Shepherd. Richmond right now runs third. Do you see Earnhardt moving up in the bright yellow and blue number 3 Wrangler machine on the bottom? Everybody is beginning to ascend to the top to their respective positions where they were during the last green flag.
Tim trying to get his lap back, but he does not do it as Bill Elliott passes him on the inside. Elliott is back out in front. Morgan Shepherd, because of an excellent pit stop, running in second position, and Phil Parsons is running third in that number 66 car. But right behind him, here comes Dale Earnhardt working to the inside of some other traffic. That is the Rick Wilson car, number 40, number 4, that he is running side by side with down the back stretch. But Earnhardt, I was going to say picked up the position, but I'll hesitate in saying that, at least for the moment.
Rick is holding on. Rick's a tough little guy too. You know, he was an all-state high school football player, so Earnhardt may be tough, but he's got a tough customer also next to him there in Rick Wilson. You can see that Wilson, at least for the time being, has turned back Dale.
And Bill Elliott is really stretching out the lead now. He is on the gas. Bobby Allison, meanwhile, continues to move through traffic. He is battling with the number 71 car of Dave Marcus. Right behind Bobby is Benny Parsons. Benny hoping to pick up a fast draft that will help him considerably. Bobby is up to 8th position. And the number 10 car of Greg Sachs, that is ahead of Bobby, is in 7th place.
There's Buddy Baker, who's right in there also. Baker and Sachs and Allison have been trading positions since this green flag dropped on this segment. Obviously, Bobby is the superior car in that group trying to move around. You see Rusty Wallace looking down low. Rusty is not in the lead lap. Bobby Hillin in the red, white number 8. Interestingly enough, still on the lead lap. Bobby Hillin Jr. turning in another great performance. There goes Allison down low in the Miller High Life, number 22, picking up more positions, more cars, and Bobby is moving on.
There you can see the American League Baseball scores. Dallas leading Los Angeles. That's an interesting score. Some of the baseball games being played this afternoon in other parts of the country as we bring you the Winston 500 Winston Cup race from Alabama International Motor Speedway in Talladega. And 124 laps are completed. Bobby Allison continuing to thread his way through traffic and move up toward the front. He was 4th in this race last year.
One of his best performances of 1985, which could best be described as a turbulent year. He's moving up on his teammate, although they've done something rather interesting with this team. Both Mickey and Bill Stavola, who have been involved with that, the number 8 car of Bobby Hillin, the 22 car of Bobby Allison. They may be teammates, but they really have created 2 distinctively different teams. They don't even pit next to one another. They share secrets, whatever they come up with, but it turns out to be so far a very successful experiment in 2-team racing.
Dale Earnhardt is trying to move into 2nd position. He does so with ease. Morgan Shepherd is the driver that he just passed to go into 2nd place. So now Earnhardt sets his sights on the leader, Bill Elliott, who is leading by several car lengths, but certainly within the sight of Dale Earnhardt. We understand that the broken windshield on Bobby Allison's car was caused by a beer can that was thrown on the racetrack. So unruly fans here have certainly been playing a significant part in this race. Not only that, but delaying the start of the event this morning when somebody came out of the stands and swiped the pace car and drove it around for a lap.
Reminiscent of Phil Parsons a year ago when he crashed because somebody had thrown debris out of the grandstand onto the racetrack and crashed through Phil Parsons' front windshield. Didn't only just crack it, it went all the way clean through it. Obviously caused Phil to go into a spin.
Bill Elliott separating himself from Dale Earnhardt and the rest of the Winston Cup field as they come down and complete another lap, lap 127. We've got 51 more laps to go in this race, and it has been pretty much a Bill Elliott situation, although Dale Earnhardt, you can see there with 7 Superspeedway wins, would certainly like to add another one to his collection today.
Remember that this is one of the big four. There's Bobby Allison moving underneath Rich Wilson as Bobby continues his relentless climb to the top, now followed by his teammate Bobby Hillin Jr. This is one of the big four, and this counts toward the possibility of winning the Winston Million. And even though Jeff Woodine will not win this race, he's still in it because you only have to win 3 of the big four in order to earn that $1 million bonus. So the guy who wins today will be the second candidate for those 4 races and that $1 million bonus.
Boy, our broadcast booth just shaking from all the noise that's created when this pack of cars goes down in front of us. Unbelievable, the speed and the noise that is experienced in this type of racing.
The other 2 races, of course, that will transpire, that will wrap up this year's Winston bonus will be the Charlotte World 600 at the end of May in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then the Southern 500, which, of course, last year was won in dramatic fashion here on ESPN by, guess who, that number 9, Bill Elliott.
And we will have live coverage of that Southern 500 once again from Darlington, South Carolina this year, and hopefully someone will be in contention for the $1 million again. Bobby Allison continuing to knock off the competitors and move toward the front of the field. He is now caught up with our second place runner Dale Earnhardt, and in fact pressuring Dale for second spot.
As we watch this tussle for second place, you know, Bob, I spotted Bobby Hillin Jr. He's got some damage to the front end of his car. Bobby Hillin Jr.'s car is not the aerodynamic perfection piece that it was when he started this race. He's doing a pretty good job staying out there because at these speeds that has to be disruptive.
Allison and Earnhardt contesting second here. Both cars moving to the higher groove now in turn number 4. Bobby looking to the inside of Earnhardt as they come off of 4 and down onto the tri-oval. There is a slower car ahead of them.
It's Kyle Petty. About an hour and a half ago he wasn't so slow, was he? They were fighting with him, but Kyle involved in that altercation with Cale on the backstretch entering turn number 2.
And there is a lot of damage on the front end of that Kyle Petty car, but he's still out there in competition. Bill Elliott is setting a pace of 205.053, and there is the interval between first and second position as Earnhardt and Bobby Allison are trying to decide who should be second at this point. We'll be back with more of our live coverage after these messages from Talladega. Can you believe those Calgary Flames, after upsetting Edmonton? Now they begin their series with St. Louis tonight on ESPN at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. I only wish that we weren't traveling back home and we could watch that game. It should be great. They have, of course, played already one game, St. Louis and Calgary, tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, live here on ESPN. Well, Bobby Allison has passed Dale Earnhardt and gone back into second position. But the interval between first and second is now about 3 or 4 seconds. And earlier in the weekend, I had an opportunity to talk with Bobby Allison about the terrific speeds that are being run here this weekend.
You've been around this sport for many years. Did you ever think you would see the day when the entire field would be above 200?
Well, really, I did. When they first built this racetrack, I went 200 here in Teston before they ever opened it. And I didn't expect the restrictions to come in nor the cars to change so drastically when we had the great reduction in speed a few years ago. And so I thought they would go right on over 200 right then. But then as time went on, I began to wonder about that. And, you know, over the past few seasons, we see the speeds once again being way up there. But I got to admit, now that it is a reality, it's pretty incredible to have the entire field over 200.
Bobby Allison from nearby Hueytown, Alabama, and really the Stavola team with he and Bobby Hillin are doing quite well in Winston Cup racing this year.
And they really are, Bob, and both of them are doing well here today. Real strong candidates for top 5. Some of the other people who are still out there running competitively that we haven't perhaps mentioned as much as the others. Phil Barkdahl, Chet Phillip, Pancho Carter has returned to the racetrack. Doug Heverin, who has moved over to the Kodak number 94 this week, Eddie Burchwell's old ride, Eddie Birchwell is driving for Henley Gray. The number 54 machine continues to motor. Ronnie Thomas picked up the James Hilton ride this week. Kyle Petty returned to the race. Dave Marcus and the Helen Ray Special, and Kenny Schrader and Junie Dunleavy's number 90. Those are the people who remain out on this track and have not had a problem here today.
And Larry, there were several drivers that came here this weekend, and despite moving above 200 miles an hour, were unable to make the show. One of them that comes to mind is Alan Kulwicki, who finished a strong 4th last weekend in Martinsville. Did not make the cut this weekend.
Everybody thought that if you had turned in a 200-mile-an-hour lap and stood on it, you'd probably get in, but it didn't work that way. We mentioned both he and Mark Martin earlier today, who didn't make it. Ken Reagan, who crashed the McCord gasket car, and J.D. McDuffie are 2 others who did not get in.
And Bill Elliott right now putting a lap on Jimmy Means, the fastest and the slowest that started in today's race. Jimmy is running in 21st position, has just gone another lap down to Bill Elliott. And we have a car that was moving very slowly and is going slowly down the backstretch. Eddie Birchwell, car number 54, appears to be in trouble.
We thought you might like to know the progress of this 200-mile-per-hour plus qualifier, 202.563. And it was only 40th on today's grid. He is running in 21st position, 3 laps down. But for Jimmy Means, one of the most consistent people really running in all of racing, it is only a typical day. He gets out there every week and he gets it done. He gets the job done and he finishes a lot of races. This is his job. This is what he does for a living, and he does it quite well.
Timing the interval between 1st and 2nd, Elliott has, according to my watch, about a 6-second lead on Bobby Allison. You know, I think you really got to ask the question, did Bill Elliott, after having not won the Daytona 500, more or less put all of his eggs in this basket here today, saying that, the next real big race is Talladega, and we're going to prepare for that and really be in top position when Talladega rolls around? It would seem that from the way that car is running, that's maybe what they did.
It's always a very tough question. You know, this team has not been around that long. They have a lot of things to learn at all the tracks. They captured the secrets of the super speedways first. It may take them a few years to catch up in the short tracks, but I think this is going to quell a lot of people who said, gee, the LA team is in trouble. They're not in trouble. They just needed a race like this.
All right, let's go down to the pit area in Jackaroo.
Well, to add to the story that you were actually discussing, gentlemen, before you came to me, I agree with you to a certain degree. The Elliott family is always concentrated on the super speedways, but they also realize that's what cost them the Winston Cup last year. So they're putting a lot of effort into their short track program as well. I think the biggest problem that they've had encountered this year was the illness from Ernie Elliott. It surfaced all the way back at the Daytona 500. It simply wasn't diagnosed until sometime late last week. Now, we want to bring you up to date on the tire situation. Remember early on in the telecast, we said they may bring the cars in to take 4 tires after the first 18 laps because they were concerned how the tires would wear at lap speeds of over 205 miles an hour. Well, I talked to the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company engineers. They've checked a lot of tires. You know what they found out? This harder compound that they put on these tires has not only done better than the compound from last year, but well enough that they're going to recommend it for the next race as well.
All right, thank you, Jack, for that update from the pit area. We go back to the racetrack and watch this group of cars race down the backstretch. Right in the middle of them there is Phil Parsons in car number 66, and for Phil, it's been an excellent race. He started 11th, qualifying at 206.7, and he is currently 7th.
His best career finish was a 6th last year at the last year, 1985 at MIS. He did not finish either of the Talladega races a year ago. His best finish so far this year has only been an 18th. So you may be watching Phil Parsons turning in his best career performance, at least in terms of finish. In terms of performance, he gets my vote for this one. It's been an excellent day for Phil. He's been up with the leaders all day long and done a right smooth job.
Right behind him is brother Benny, who gets a little high there in the second corner. Phil Parsons and Benny Parsons and Terry Labonte there to the inside of Phil, but Terry is not on the lead lap, and then Richard Petty is bringing up the rear of this procession as they go into turn number 3, and Richard is running in 9th place. So with 191 laps completed, make that 192 laps. It still remains a Bill Elliott race. Coors Melling Ford is the leader. Oh, wait, well, that's not the real race car. And somebody obviously is not a Bobby Allison fan because that car is on its top.
I get a feeling that Bobby's going to make him eat his words before the day is over because Bobby's looking pretty strong and pretty steady right now.
Back to the real race. I said before the break 192 laps have been completed. I meant 142 because there are only 188 laps in this race. And it is Bill Elliott's race at this point. He certainly is dominating and has about a 6-second lead on the pack.
There is Dave Marcus in the Helen Ray orange and cream number 71, and Ron Bouchard in the number 98 Valvoline car. Bouchard has been able to remain on the lead lap all day long. Here's another one of those drivers who has run mid-pack most of the season. Everybody feels as though he has the potential of being one of the consistent front runners. He really could use a very strong race. It's been a good race, a better race than most of the events that Ron has been in this year, but I don't think quite up to the par that he himself expects of himself. But it is somewhat of an accomplishment, somewhat of a minor victory, because at least they've been able to run out there most of the day and stay on the lap with the leaders.
Ron is running in 12th position right now. Make that 13th. Dave Marcus is 12th, and Ron Bouchard is 13th. His best finish of the year, a 6th at Daytona. As you indicated, Larry, it would be a very big boom for this team and for Ron Bouchard to finish well here in the Winston 500. Now, Rick Wilson in car number 4 is a guy that we haven't mentioned too much, but boy, I'll tell you, he is really hanging in there. There he is on the right side of your screen. He is in 4th position, but right behind Dale Earnhardt in 3rd and not too far behind Bobby Allison in 2nd. A great performance by the young Bartow, Florida driver, and Captain Cody's sponsored Oldsmobile.
I got to give a gold star to Joe Ruttman. He was the guy who tipped me off and was real strong in saying, I'll tell you, I really think that Rick Wilson, if there's a dark horse in today's race, it's got to be him. And here's Kyle smoking badly, coming off of looks to be turn number 3, fire igniting.
He spun out there in the turn, and now the car is on fire in the infield. Kyle, as you can see, trying desperately to get out of the car. He hasn't yet, and the car is continuing to roll, but you can see him struggling to get out of the car.
I think he himself burned to a halt. The fire did snuff out. He did a pretty good job of getting it down in the grass. He got it off of the blacktop, so it was out of the way of everybody else. Young Kyle doing a really good job right there, getting that car out of the way, getting out of it quickly once he saw the fire erupt.
Elliott crosses the line, and the yellow flag comes out on lap number 147. This is our 8th caution period of the day. And Terry Labonte is into the pits. It's been a very disappointing race for Terry Labonte, who lost a lap early and now is being moved behind the pit wall.
Let me give you some interesting information here. It's lap 147, and if everybody pits right now, they are right at the absolute extension of the window for going the rest of the distance on the green flag with a full load of fuel. Kyle goes into the ambulance under his own power. Really, I think what it amounts to, it usually is a pretty nice ride back to the pits. But if everybody ins this time, it's going to be an interesting situation because this may be outside of most people's window in terms of being able to go the distance. You figure they can go 35, 36, 37 laps on a full load of fuel with 147 laps turned in. It's a little further than the 188 laps that this race will total.
So the leaders come in for another stop, and let's go down to Jack Arute, who is in the Bill Elliott pit as the crew goes to work. Jack?
And indeed they do, going to the outside first. Now, Bobby Allison is shown on the bottom of your picture. Outside tires for Allison, same thing for Bill Elliott. Nobody so far has dived inside the car to make chassis adjustments like they did the last time they serviced Bill Elliott's car. Inside tires for Bobby Allison, same thing for Bill Elliott. So it's monkey see, monkey do here. Makes a lot of sense, though, to put 4 new Goodyear tires on. Allison is down and out. Elliott goes as well. It'll be a drag race to the end of the line.
Let's see who wins the race out of the pit area, because Elliott pitted farther down pit road. It is going to be Bill Elliott who leads Bobby Allison out of the pit area. Then Dale Earnhardt is going to fall into 3rd, and Rick Wilson is going to be in 4th position. So standings don't change very much here because of this yellow caution period caused by Kyle Petty's car that burst into flames and spun down in turn number 3. That's the reason we're yellow, with 148 laps completed at the Winston 500. We'll be right back. At the Winston 500 with 149 of 188 laps completed, the leader is Bill Elliott, Bobby Allison second, then Dale Earnhardt, Rick Wilson fourth, and Phil Parsons in fifth.
Joe Ruttman, even though he didn't really expect it, it looked like he was going to be a contender in the early part of the race. He's been out there all day long, even though he lost some laps early in the race. Joe, what goes on between yourself and the crew on the radio during a race like this when you don't really have a chance to win?
Well, we talk about what we're going to do next week, and we have a lot of fun.
Joe, you were anticipating next week even before the race began. You have some pretty good feelings about next week at Atlanta, don't you?
And what cars that we're actually racing against, that's the most critical part of the race right now. Once you lose 2 or 3 laps or 4 or whatever it might be, you're concerned about who else you might be racing with.
Joe, we've talked to Bobby Allison and to Benny Parsons, and both of them have told us that even though the speeds were higher this year, there were no surprises. The cars really behaved, and everybody was reasonably comfortable out there despite the 200-plus miles per hour.
Well, I'm not sure it's comfortable, but it's a lot better than the notchback style car. There's no question about that.
Joe, have you seen Bill Elliott, or does he whiz by so quickly you can't get a fix on him?
You don't know exactly where to go.
Well, it's been a long day for you, but you performed well here in the middle of the pack, in the middle of the race, trying to carry a car to the end.
Well, we're just hanging in there and having a little bit of fun.
Okay, Joe, good luck to you.
All right, Kyle Petty got into the ambulance and was checked over, but he apparently is okay. Let's go to the pit area.
Well, Kyle Petty kind of went to a barbecue today.
Kind of, I guess. I don't know. I got in that first wreck when Kale blew up and kind of messed up the car, and really we were just out there riding around. And I guess the NASCAR spotters were reading the paper doing something because somebody blew it up and dumped about 34 quarts of oil down going in 3, and I got in the oil and hit the wall, and it was history from there on out. But I don't know who was watching the racetrack, but there wasn't nobody because there was stuff all over.
When you were running so well earlier in the race, the crowd was really pulling for you, standing, cheering. Could you hear that? Could you tell?
No, I'm going to tell you what, you run out here about 206, 207, you got your hands full. You ain't listening to nobody else but the guy on the radio.
Okay, there's Kyle Petty. He's okay. Jack Arute is on pit road with another story. Jack?
And behind me, there's a huddled conversation going on right now by the brain trust that takes care of the pits for Bill Elliott and the Coors Melling number 9. Dan Elliott is serving as the crew chief here today. Dan, can you go the distance?
Sure we can.
Well, before this, you were sitting down saying, I need a few more caution laps before I'm going to be able to make that decision. Do you think you've got enough now?
I think we have. I don't see any. We just have to run, see how we do on toward the end. I think be okay.
Well, Larry, maybe you can make the odds, but this is one team that says no more stops on pit road.
I don't know. I kind of got the feeling that Dan was saying, sure we can, and rather sarcastically there.
Well, we're now 38 laps, Jack and Bob and Dick, from the end of this race, and we're running under caution. That window that I talked about, the 35, 37 lap thing, was under green. So if we continue to run under caution and maybe get up to like lap 152 or 153, yeah, I'd go along with Danny. Sure, they can all make it, but I still think that for some people it's going to be mighty close.
Now, there was supposed to have been $10,000 paid at the end of lap 150. The leader of that lap picking up a bonus of $10,000. But again, as it was on lap 100, we are completing lap 150 under caution. So when we go back to green, it'll be the second green lap, and then the leader of that will collect the $10,000 bonus from Kodak. We'll be right back to Talladega. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway is open for practice, and beginning May 5th, ESPN will bring you 24 half-hour presentations focusing on the most memorable races at Indianapolis, including 1951, 55, 61, 62, 63, 64, right on down the line. We urge you to be with us. Beginning Monday, May 5th, 24 half-hour historic films from Indianapolis, Indiana. Dale Earnhardt has come in for another pit stop, and Larry, this may relate to what we've been talking about. The yellow is still out, but they'll go green in one more lap, and everybody wanted to make sure he had a full load of fuel when the green does come back out.
I definitely think so, Bob, and they're being given the one-lap signal. Now, there are a lot of people who are pitted. There are at least 10 cars who pitted at the last second here with just one lap to go before we go green. I think some people are going to get stuck behind. Well, I don't know. The field is now only moving through turn number 2, still at the reduced caution flag pace, and now the last car, Pancho Carter, is pulling out to rejoin the field.
So Michael Andretti, we understand, at Indianapolis, and Bobby Rahal have both exceeded 210 miles an hour in the second day of practice at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Duplicating Mario of yesterday.
Back down to the pit area for this report.
And I'm with Terry Labonte. Terry, what's the problem?
Well, I don't really know. You know, something happened to the engine that dumped some oil out and quit running, so I don't really know what broke in it.
Last week there were 10 engines blown at Martinsville. Here it seems as if there's a lot of people behind pit wall. Is this abnormal?
Well, I don't know. You know, down here you see a lot of people fall out with engine trouble. It's just one of those deals, I guess.
Do they have engine trouble here because they don't breathe the car, because they run wide open all the way around?
Well, I think that's a big problem, and you know, the car will turn 7,500, 7,700 RPMs all day long, and eventually it just catches up with some of them.
And it caught up with Terry Labonte today.
Terry watches from the pit area as the field comes down off of corner number 4 onto the tri-oval for a restart. Harold Kinder looking them over closely, now waves the green flag, and Bill Elliott steps on the throttle and picks up the pace to continue under racing conditions the Winston 500. Bobby Allison is in second position, and Rick Wilson is in third. Allison now right up on the back bumper, drafting Bill Elliott into corner number 2.
Labonte, by the way, was third in points coming in 2 today as we watch Elliott and Allison. 153 laps now complete, 35. Oh, look at Bill Elliott move underneath Tim Richmond. He wanted that low groove regardless of where Richmond was. Elliott goes through 35 laps now to the end. It looks like that everybody who felt that they might have been cutting it extra super close came in for a last-second pit stop there just before we went green. Look who's in third space, Rick Wilson.
Keeping right up with the leaders, and Tim Richmond had ideas of getting a lap back there on the backstretch, but that soon disappeared as Elliott just blasted around him coming off the second corner.
And that dust, by the way, is quick dry that they applied to the speedway during the last caution flag, so nobody was smoking an engine or losing something.
All right, that's 1 lap under green. Now the leader of this lap will collect $10,000. Bobby Allison won 10 grand at the end of 50 laps. Dale Earnhardt collected 10 grand at the end of 100 laps, and now it appears as if Bill Elliott may be the third different driver to win $10,000.
I don't know. I think this is going to be close. It's going to be within a half a lap. Yeah, Bill really looks super tough, particularly here in the latter stages of this race. He knows that at this point he can hang it out just a little more. Here is coming to the line looking for $10,000 more, and this is going to be easy pickings.
Here he is in the tri-oval, and he does cross the stripe ahead of the field. So Bill Elliott wins $10,000 from Kodak, is the third driver to collect that amount of money in this race. Back of him, a good contest for second position, as 155 laps have been completed out of 188. Elliott is going at a rate of 205.493 miles an hour. And look at the battle for second between Bobby Allison and Rick Wilson.
Snaking down the backstretch. Bill Elliott trying to shake the rest of the field trying to follow in his wake. I don't know that Elliott really has to do that. He seems to be so much faster than everybody else. It seems like he could just run his own line and nobody else is going to be able to keep up.
Boy, a real feather in Rick Wilson's cap here this weekend. He has been on the pace all day long, and he is right up now on the back end of Bobby Allison's car, drafting him and looking like he can take second position at any moment.
Wilson only started 21st. He was the second day fastest qualifier, and he timed in, as we look at Bobby Allison, at 205 miles an hour. And there's Rick Wilson, 205 miles an hour. Really was only about 21st or 22nd fastest time on the grid anyway. But Rick has run almost as fast all day long as he qualified.
Rick was one of those who did quite a bit of testing down here at Talladega before the race weekend, and he ran 209 miles an hour in practice and said then that he thought that he would be a contender for the win here this afternoon, and he is right, although he did qualify, as you indicated, Larry, at 105.317 miles an hour. He has been among the fastest all day long.
He drafted during practice with Jeff Bodine, clocked down officially at 210 miles an hour, and then with Tim Richmond at 207. And as we told you earlier, there were a number of people who said, well, let's just wait and see. We really think that Wilson is somebody to be reckoned with today. And we're right.
Look at Bobby Allison close in on Bill Elliott. He narrows that gap to about 5 or 6 car lengths now, pulling away slightly from Rick Wilson, but Allison showing some muscle here. And you know, your mind has to go back to a graphic that we showed you earlier about the of the unusual, shall we say, winners or first-time winners that have occurred here at Talladega. Could Rick Wilson be in that category and be in that situation on lap 188?
There are 3 other people who are in that situation, in that category. Phil Parsons, Bobby Hillen Jr. in the middle, and Greg Sachs going to first in that group. Look what happened the last time they came off of number 4. Sachs and Bobby Hillen Jr. touch. Phil Parsons ducks low. Let these guys combat with themselves. Let me see what happens. They both held rock solid, and nobody really was the worst for the incident.
Nice job of driving there by both Greg Sachs and Bobby Hillen. Sachs has the position now as Phil Parsons moves right alongside Bobby Hillen and battles for that position.
There's Morgan Shepherd making his presence known along with Richard Petty. A couple laps ago, by the way, Richard Petty and Morgan Shepherd got also very close. A situation almost exactly like that. And they're running in that group that must be fighting for around 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. Make that 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th right now.
All right, let's get down to the pit area. And
you can see Richard is sideways. Petty is sideways there, working underneath Morgan Shepherd. And that time, Morgan got the better of it, but Richard really breaking loose that time, going around turn number 2.
And he's losing momentum as Ron Bouchard passes Richard Petty to the inside, and so does Benny Parsons.
Here comes Benny like shot up from guns, I'll tell you.
And Ron Bouchard now alongside Petty, who was running in 10th place when that little sideways incident occurred. Here's a replay as he was right alongside Morgan Shepherd.
Oh, he was very close to Morgan. Looks like he took evasive action to avoid from running into Morgan, and when he did, it put the car into a little bit of a spin. Boy, didn't he gather that up nicely. And I'll tell you, that's certainly an example of the tremendous experience that some of these drivers have.
We were planning on going to the pit area for a conversation with the crew chief on Rick Wilson's car. We'll do that right now.
And I'm with Tony Glover. He is the crew chief. Tony, your crew must be very happy with the way Rick is running today.
Yeah, we're just tickled to death. We hope we can make it the rest of the way on gas. It's going to be awful close.
You're going to try to make it without another pit stop?
Yeah, we're going to shoot him up and roll him and see what comes up.
Can he run hard, or is he going to have to back off and conserve? What will your strategy be from here?
We're going to have to try to hang on to the 22 car. That's the only shot we got.
Do you think you're fast enough to be able to pass the 22?
I don't know. That's only Rick Wilson knows that, I guess.
And if Tony Glover sounds like a familiar name, this young man's dad was quite a standout racer himself.
He sure was, and Tony obviously has done a good job preparing this car for Rick Wilson. There he is drafting on Bobby Allison, and the expression of a possible gas problem there by Tony.
Yeah, like I told you, when that first caution flag first came out, it was pretty obvious that if anybody is having any type of fuel consumption problems, or if any of them are running right on the edge, that caution flag came just at the wrong time for him, because it was right at the moment. And it is anybody's guess. It was late enough that you couldn't really tell exactly if you could go the distance. It just came at the wrong time.
Elliott crossing the line, completing lap 162, and he has just about a 1-second lead on Bobby Allison. The average speed at the end of 158 laps was 153.41, far off the race record, which is 186.288. 8 caution periods has contributed to the not so fast pace here this afternoon, but when they're under green, Bill Elliott turning laps of around 205 miles an hour. Dale Earnhardt has suddenly dropped off the pace and is not quite as much of a contender as he was. Let's find out why by going to the pit area.
And I'm with Dale's car owner, Richard Childress. Richard, he had a lot of muscle, and then it looks as if he went flat on you.
No, we just lost the draft. We had to pit and, to cap the gas off. And when we did that, we just lost the lead draft. We could run with him and get back up there. I don't know if we could run with Bill. He's awful strong, but we could hang in there with Bobby and him.
When you know, or when you question whether you can run with the leader, that he's that strong, what kind of strategy do you develop? What do you try and tell Dale? Forget about first, let's get more positions?
No, you never forget about first. We're still thinking we got a shot at winning. You never know, It's not over till it's over.
Now, Elliott's crew did not bring him in for top off of fuel. You did come in at the tail end. Do you think maybe that can make the difference? Maybe this thing won't be over till it's over?
I think so. It's going to push Bill. Bobby might make it, but I don't know about the 9 and the 4.
But what he's talking about, gentlemen, is the fact that Fords historically get poorer gas mileage than their General Motors counterparts. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we will, but it certainly brings up an interesting topic to talk about. Now, there is Earnhardt, who is running in 4th place. Buddy Baker is right behind him in 5th.
It's likely that Earnhardt, when he went around Buddy, gave him the wave of the hand. Both of them are veterans. They've been around a long time. They're good friends on and off the racetrack, and said, Buddy, let's go. The only chance that either one of us have is for you to follow me. So this is probably one of those instant planned strategies on the racetrack. When two drivers know what the odds are up against them, they have hooked up and they're going to try and run down the leaders. Normally in years past, this sort of thing works, particularly when the leader is out front all by himself. But will it work against Bill Elliott and his superior machine? Who knows?
Buddy Baker, an excellent performance this afternoon in 5th. This will by far be his best finish if he can hang in there. He has run in only 3 races this year. This is his 4th, competing, of course, only on the super speedways. But his best finish to date has been a 15th during the Atlanta 500. He was 26th at Daytona and 30th at Darlington. Buddy Baker, LZ Wiley Baker, running in 5th place in the Winston 500. There's the leader.
LZ Wiley Baker Jr., as a matter of fact.
Bill Elliott continues to lead with 165 laps to go. Laps completed. So just about 23 more before the checkered flag will fall. Will it be on Bill Elliott, Bobby Allison, Rick Wilson, or others? We'll find out when we come back. Back at Talladega, Alabama, Bob Jenkins, Larry Newber, Jack Arute, and Dick Berggren covering the action of the Winston 500, which is in its closing stages. 168 laps will be complete when Bill Elliott crosses the stripe once again. That leaves us with 20 laps to go. And Elliott certainly is not pulling away from the field. Allison is right there. So is Rick Wilson. Let's go to the pit area and have a conversation with the crew chief on the Bobby Allison machine.
And the crew chief is Bobby Hudson. Bobby, have you got enough gas to go all the way?
We're really not sure, but we decided that we're going for first. If we run out of gas, that's just the way it is. It'll be awful close.
Are you guessing that Elliott can go all the way, or are you counting on him running out?
We feel sure that he could go all the way because if he's got the field covered, and if there was any problems, he would have stopped.
And that's the strategy from Bobby Allison's pit.
Okay, so there's a lot of fear on pit road as to whether or not the top leaders have enough fuel to finish the race. Jeff Bodine is in for another pit stop. He has had a very disappointing day also. They're changing all 4 tires on this car, and you can see that that Levi Garrett car is pretty battered there in the front end.
There is Elliott. There is Allison. 1-2 on the track, 1-2 right now in the standings. They have put some distance between themselves and Rick Wilson. Is Rick looking at the fuel gauge, the fuel pressure gauge? Is he noticing that perhaps something is a little amiss there? Is he holding back? Is Allison moving in? Is Elliott playing possum? Bobby Allison is definitely closer now to Bill Elliott than he has been perhaps all day long under the green flag conditions. Bobby Allison is putting the pressure on Bill Elliott.
Last Winston Cup win for Bobby Allison was at Charlotte in May of 1984, just about 2 years ago during the World 600. But Bobby Allison has hung in there all day. He started in 2nd position. He is still in 2nd spot, but certainly not 3 miles an hour slower than Bill Elliott, as was the qualifying speeds. We would like to thank the Quaker State people for their cooperation in attempting to make our in-car camera work here this afternoon, but we have had problems with it. Nevertheless, we salute the Quaker State people and the team owned by Kenny Bernstein and their cooperation as we attempted to bring you pictures from inside Joe Ruttman's car. There's the separation.
Bob would also like to thank the people here at the Talladega Speedway, the Alabama International Motor Speedway, as somebody is coming to us. It looks like Kenny Schrader coasting along the bottom, headed towards the pit. They were very hospitable. It was a very nice time here this weekend. We had a nice place to stay this weekend. The racetrack was terrific. The weather was great. Thanks to Don Naiman, president and general manager, Jim Freeman and Hardy Smith, who made our stay really welcome, and they were quite hospitable all weekend long.
Ken Schrader from Fenton, Missouri has brought his number 90 Junie Donlevy car into the pit area. Kenny has competed in all Winston Cup races this year and had a 7th place finish at Martinsville just last weekend, but the hood goes up on that car.
Other than the, go ahead, Bob.
His best career finish, by the way, was that 7th place finish at Martinsville last weekend.
Other than the leaders that we've been looking at, of course, there are the two most vivid manifestations of the lead. Elliott, Allison, here are some of the people, not necessarily in this order, who are the survivors today of the 200-mile-per-hour test. Phil Parsons remains on the lead lap. Tim Richmond running competitively here in the last half of the race, but not on the lead lap. Harry Gant, Dave Marcus. Then we have the number 48 car being driven by Ronnie Thomas this week. 52 of Jimmy Means. Del McCoward has survived. Jeff Bodine has come back out. 64 of Tommy Gale, run all day long. Doug Heberlin still remains. Joe Ruttman. The number 73 car, the other Helen Ray special, Phil Barkle, has survived, as has Chet Phillip, Buddy Arrington, and Pancho Carter.
Larry, your observations of just a couple of moments ago about the fact that it looked like Bobby Allison was closing on the number 9 of Bill Elliott. Well, your eyes deceived you. Not really. The stopwatch showed me that what's happened is Elliott has slowed down considerably on the lead pace, and that has allowed Bobby Allison, who still runs the same way he was before, to close in. I think maybe it's the first sign of a little fuel conservation on the part of the leader. Also, I wanted to tell you the 5th place car, I went down to check with their crew chief, Buddy Baker's Crisco machine. They don't have a crew chief. So I wasn't able to find out whether they were going to go the distance.
Well, Jack, they may have slowed down a little bit, but still, the last lap we clocked Bill Elliott, and it was a 204.3 mile-an-hour lap. The crowd is on its feet. The grandstand here in front of us holds 85,000, and at least 84,900 of them are on their feet watching this battle as they come out of the tri-oval. They are cheering for
Bill Elliott has
Allison.
slowed. Bill Elliott has slowed.
He has blown. The car is smoking badly here on the tri-oval, and Bill Elliott will not win here this afternoon. Look at the smoke pouring from that Coors Ford. Wow. Bobby Allison is going to be the leader. What a dramatic change of pace here in the late stages of this race. With 15, make that 14 laps to go. Elliott's dream of winning Winston is over.
It is almost hard to believe that car has been so incredibly strong all week long. Not only today, it's just like this can't be happening. But Bill Elliott, there he is, vivid pictorial proof as he coasts down the backstretch. You see the smudge of oil, the splash of oil all on the left-hand side of the car. Bill Elliott's day is over.
And Larry, this is the 2nd consecutive weekend that Bill Elliott has lost a motor, and it's the 2nd time in his career, I believe, that he has had engine problems.
You know, it's really difficult to assess exactly is the absence of Ernie making a difference or not. Ernie does not do all of the work on these engines. As a matter of fact, they get parts and pieces, and some of the work is done by other people. And Ernie, it seems to be heretofore, has been the mastermind who has put everything together. They've done an excellent job of making this car last each of the last 3 years, as a matter of fact, on the Winston Cup Trail. And it's a question that really I cannot give you the answer to, whether or not Ernie's absence makes a difference.
Bill Elliott did not come in for a pit stop. He remains on the racetrack. He's running on the apron very slowly, but is still out there on the track. Now, what this does do is allow the leaders to come in and top their fuel tanks off so they can be assured of going the distance. And what we have set up here is going to be a battle for the finish without any question whatsoever. Let's go down to Dick Berggren.
Well, here's Bobby Allison. It is going to be more than just topping off the fuel tank. He's taking at least right side tires, as is Dale Earnhardt. And they're going to do left side tires as well. It'll be a 4-tire change, as well as fuel for Allison. As well, Earnhardt is doing a 4-tire change. They are pitted one in front of the other. This pit stop may do it. There is also a crew member inside Allison's car adjusting the wedge. Allison just gave him the go-ahead okay sign, and there he goes in 26.3. A fine stop for Bobby Allison, who beats Dale Earnhardt out of the pits.
Yes, but Buddy Baker wins the drag race out of the pit area, and Rick Wilson is also going to be ahead of Bobby Allison when they throw the green flag. So we do have a possibility of Rick Wilson winning this race and continuing the tradition here at Talladega.
There's Rick Wilson moving out in front of Bobby Allison. Jimmy Means are on the high side. Jimmy, of course, at least 3 laps down. He'll be moving down to the inside on this restart. But boy, this late caution flag really sets up a speed helmet dash to the checker.
Boy, does it.
Fuel doesn't mean anything now. It's whoever has the fastest car right now whoever made the right changes and the right adjustments during this final pit stop.
Well, we're on lap 176. It'll be a couple of more laps before we go green. So when we do go green, we're going to see some drafting and a shootout for the finish. We hope you'll be back to join us for that. Welcome back to Talladega. The green flag is about to come back out, and Bill Elliott will have to watch the green come out from the pit area as the Coors Milling Ford has expired on Bill. The field is being led off of corner number 4 by the pace car, but now it ducks into the pit road, and Buddy Baker is going to lead him down here for the green flag. Rick Wilson in second place, third Bobby Allison, and fourth is Dale Earnhardt. There are 10 laps to go, and here's the green flag.
With 10 laps to go, there are 11 cars in the lead lap. The first 4 that Bob just mentioned, then Richard Petty, Bobby Hillin Jr., Phil Parsons, Morgan Shepherd, Drake Sachs, Ron Bouchard, and Dave Marcus. There are a couple of near surprises in there, but who has the fastest car for the last 10 laps of this race?
Well, Earnhardt has moved alongside Rick Wilson now for the battle for third place. Buddy Baker remains in the lead for the moment, but look at Bobby Allison on the inside. Allison makes it 3 wide at the end of the backstretch, and Bobby Allison, slides high on the racetrack, cannot go into the lead.
Here comes Wilson.
Look at Rick Wilson on the high side of the racetrack, move into second position.
Here comes Richard Petty in the super high lane. Petty is looking for second place. Rick Wilson ends up in second. No, make that third for Petty. Buddy Baker escaped with about a 10-car length lead.
Buddy Baker leads lap number 179. As Rick Wilson has now put himself in second position, Richard Petty third, and Dale Earnhardt in fourth spot. Let's recap very briefly here while we watch this action what has happened so far. We started the race with 42 cars, all of them over 200 miles an hour. To begin the race, as spectators stole the pace car for 1 lap. They had to set up a roadblock to catch him. Bill Elliott pretty much dominated the race. There goes Richard Petty working on Rick Wilson for second position. Bill Elliott pretty much dominated this race until he was sidelined. And now we have this tremendous battle shaping up for the lead. Buddy Baker has the lead, but look at the contest for second. Earnhardt is now in second position. On the inside is Bobby Hillin Jr. He's now in third position, and Richard Petty is fourth, followed by Rick Wilson, Phil Parsons, and Bobby Allison. It's going to be a definite shootout to the checkered.
In 8 previous races, there have been 7 different winners. Buddy Baker, who is leading this race right now, is not among them. Only Dale Earnhardt, who is running up front, has been a previous winner, along with Morgan Shepherd, whom you just saw slide out a little bit in that yellow and white number 47 machine. The parity is really from the NASCAR. It looks like we'll have another different winner unless Dale Earnhardt wins. And look at him run down Baker. Here comes Dale Earnhardt like a freight train. Richard Childers told us earlier, we can do it.
And he's looking like he can on the high side of the racetrack. It is Dale Earnhardt now following Buddy Baker to the stripe to complete lap number 181. We've got 7 more laps to go, and Earnhardt looks like he may be the strongest car on the racetrack at this point.
Here comes Allison. Allison is on the high side of his teammate, Bobby Hillin Jr. There's Bobby in third. You can see the basically white car with the red trim. Bobby Hillin is right underneath them. Richard Petty is right behind. Allison finally disposes of Hillin. Now Allison sets his sights on Dale Earnhardt, who still has not gotten around Buddy Baker, the acknowledged master of super speedways, just a couple of years ago.
Buddy Baker's last win was at Daytona in July of 1983. It's been almost 3 years since he was in victory lane. Will he do it here this afternoon? Well, he's got a lot of competition and a lot of drivers behind him that would like to change that situation. The freight train comes off the 4th turn onto the tri-oval once again. Moving to the inside is Bobby Allison, trying to reestablish himself in second position. Allison and Earnhardt look like they touch coming down the stripe. Now they're side by side in turn number 1.
Remember where the start-finish line is at this racetrack. It is not in the middle of the tri-oval. That could be a factor in this race. The start-finish line is at the exit of the pits. There are just 5.5 laps to go. Phil Parsons incredibly high on that last lap. No wall contact, holds his position. He runs in 7th. And here comes Bobby Allison, followed by Earnhardt.
Allison takes the lead. Earnhardt moves to second position, making Buddy Baker back to third. It is Bobby Hillin Jr. who's running in 4th position. And now, once again, Bobby Allison has moved his Miller American Buick to the top spot. He has been the car that has followed Bill Elliott for most of this race, but hung right in there and been in a contesting situation. 5 more laps to go. It's Allison, Earnhardt, Baker, Hillin, Parsons, Petty.
With the old cars, everybody pretty much figured, well, I know where I want to be on the last lap. But can you know now? Do these cars respond differently in the draft? Can you pass coming off of turn number 4? Can you pass one extra time going through the tri-oval? There have to be a lot of unknowns unless somebody in that pack has been doing the right kind of experimenting during this race, and maybe Bobby Allison knows the right thing to do. Maybe Dale Earnhardt knows the right thing to do. Could Bobby Hillin Jr. be the guy who's holding the ace? Who knows the right move to make or the right set of moves on that final lap?
But we will know the answer to all those questions in 4 more laps. This is lap 184 completed. Bobby Allison is the leader, but drafting him very, very closely is Dale Earnhardt, and right behind Earnhardt is Buddy Baker as they set the cars at turn number 2. They're running at 204.092 miles an hour.
The most competitive Winston Cup races for the top 5 have taken place here at Talladega because of Elliott's dominance. It didn't happen today. They once had 75 leads in this year. That was just 2 years ago, 1984. This is the kind of racing that we're accustomed to seeing here at Talladega. Boy, you pull out that wild card, Bill Elliott, and everybody is right there at a tie from the front.
The start-finish line is right in front of us, and as we look toward the infield, NASCAR has set up their photo finish camera, and they may well be using it in 3 more laps. It appears as if it's going to be a 3-car shootout to the end because there's a little bit of racetrack between Buddy Baker in 3rd and Bobby Hillin Jr. in 4th, but that gap can close very quickly. We continue to watch the first 3 cars traverse turn number 2 and go onto the backstretch once again. Bobby Allison from nearby Hueytown, Alabama is the leader.
Bob, I'll tell you what, here's my guess. I do not think that the car that leads the white flag lap is going to lead the entirety of the final lap. I am not saying the car that leads the white flag lap will not win this race. He still could, but I don't think he'll lead that lap all the way around. There's going to be some passing on the final lap of this race.
In just 2 more laps, the checkered flag will fall. The white flag will come out in 1 more lap. The crowd is on its feet, cheering for their particular favorite.
Bobby Allison, Dale Earnhardt, Buddy Baker, seemingly out of touch, seemingly out of reach. Bobby Hillin Jr. also right up in there is Morgan Shepherd. Richard Petty has definitely dropped back. It seems like that Hillin Jr. and Shepherd are out of it. Phil Parsons is also right up there, but look how close they get. Coming down the backstretch, the interval between the first trio and the second trio shrinks to about 3 car lengths. White flag coming up.
The pace is at 202.6 miles an hour. If Dale Earnhardt were to win this race, it would be his 3rd victory this year in Winston Cup competition. Neither Bobby Allison nor Buddy Baker has won in Winston Cup racing so far this year. The crowd cheers. The white flag is unfurled by Harold Kinder, and we've got 1 more lap to go on this 2.66-mile tri-oval here at Talladega, and the winner of the Winston 500 is very much up in the air at this point. Let's watch them move through turn number 2 now. Bobby Allison stretches it out just a little bit over Dale Earnhardt. They go on to the backstretch. It is still Earnhardt staying in 2nd position and Baker in 3rd. Let's see if Dale Earnhardt will make the move to the inside and slingshot at the end of the backstretch going into turn number 3. Yes, he does. He moves alongside Bobby Allison, and Dale Earnhardt takes Allison high in turn number 4. They're still side by side as they come by turn number 4. They're onto the tri-oval, and Bobby Allison still has the lead. I don't think Dale Earnhardt is going to do it. It appears as if, yes, Bobby Allison wins the Winston 500. Bobby Allison wins here at Talladega. Dale Earnhardt finishes 2nd and Buddy Baker 3rd. There you can see Dale moving alongside Bobby and saying, nice race, guys.
It really was. You know, Earnhardt did make the pass. He did get by Bobby like I suspected. I didn't think the leader could lead the entirety of the last lap, but Dale went into number 3 just a little too hard. Bobby held his line on the high side and was able to get around. He kept the momentum. Dale had to give up the momentum when he went underneath Bobby, and Bobby Allison is back with a capital B.
He sure is. Bobby Hillin Jr. moved alongside there and saluted his teammate Bobby Allison, but Bobby Hillin Jr. certainly has nothing to be ashamed of. He did a tremendous job this afternoon. Well, let's take a look at that final 1/2 lap at the end of the backstretch. This is the move that Dale Earnhardt made.
Well, Dale obviously figured that he could not be passed if he had the lead going into the tri-oval. So he thought, okay, here's where I'll go. He takes the lead. He moves down low, but he loses a little bit of traction. Bobby Allison way up in the loose stuff. You could see the marbles flying as he held his line on the high side, kept the momentum up, and by the time Dale recovered, he just couldn't get up enough more speed to get back around Bobby.
That is just an excellent victory for Bobby Allison, who had not won since 1984. There was the margin of victory for Bobby Allison from our camera on the inside of the racetrack. Bobby Allison, well, it's just about, I would say, 2 car lengths, the victory for Bobby Allison.
Dale, who celebrated his 34th birthday a little earlier this week, could not give himself a birthday present, but the 48-year-old driver, that guy right there, Bobby Allison, who had won 81 times previously in his career prior to today, picks up win number 82 here at the world's fastest speedway, Talladega, Alabama.
Allison came into this race in 7th place in the point standings, but is going to move up, and really you cannot complain about the year he has had. If you discount Daytona and Rockingham, he has had all top 10 finishes. 4th at Richmond, 9th at Atlanta, 6th at Bristol, 3rd at Darlington, 6th at North Wilkesboro, 8th at Martinsville, and the 82nd victory of his career here this afternoon at Talladega.
Bobby really came prepared. That car has been strong all weekend long, and everybody's been saying, hey, you know, whatever you heard about Allison, read or thought, don't believe it, because this man is ready to go here this week. They came off the trailer prepared. They've just been steady all week long. It is most unfortunate that Bill Elliott had to drop out. I think he proved a lot today. Certainly victory would have been extra super sweet. Bobby Allison would probably be the first one to admit that he couldn't have caught Bill, but for Bobby, it was a great win.
It certainly is, and he is in victory lane right now, and he is getting the helmet off and getting unstrapped from that number 22 Miller American Buick, and in just a moment he'll step out of the cockpit and we'll have an opportunity to talk with Bobby Allison, 48-year-old driver from Hueytown, Alabama, who is the winner here in the Winston 500.
He is number 3 on the all-time list for career winnings, and certainly today helped out a little bit. $5,735,000 of winnings going into today.
There he is, Bobby Allison. Let's go to Jackaroo.
Well, it's kind of tough here in Victory Lane. This has been a long time since you've been here, Bobby. Congratulations.
Boy, I'll tell you what, that's for sure. It's been too long, but it's nice to be back, especially here at home.
Typical Talladega finish. It was right down to the wire until you could decide it. What went through your head the last 4 or 5 laps, Bobby?
Well, I felt like the car handled so good and the engine worked so good that I felt like I could beat him back from in the front, so I just tried for it.
Knowing that it is your hometown track, knowing that it's not that far away from Birmingham, and these stands are filled with your fans, does it make it extra special?
It really is, I'll tell you. It is great right here at home, I'm telling you. It is just super great.
I'll tell you what, on behalf of everybody at ESPN, congratulations. Back up to you guys.
Well, we're used to seeing a battle of the champagnes in Victory Lane, but we have a battle of the beers between Allison and Arute in our Victory Lane. Well, our Winner's Circle interview has been brought to you by Goodyear. You either have Goodyear Eagles or you need them. Well, we'll be back with our final thoughts on this Winston 500 that we have totally enjoyed, and we hope you have too, here on ESPN Live this afternoon. We'll be right back. The top 10 finishers in today's race. Bobby Allison wins. Finishing in 2nd position is the number 3 car of Dale Earnhardt. 3rd was Buddy Baker. 4th, Bobby Hillin Jr. And 5th was Phil Parsons. It ties Bobby Hillin Jr.'s best career finish, and it is the best career finish for Phil Parsons. They're 6 through 10. Morgan Shepherd, Richard Petty, Rick Wilson, Greg Sachs, and Ron Bouchard.